And welcome to the Norton Board of Selectmen's meeting. Today is January 23rd. All members of the board are present, and also Town Manager Michael Units. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first order of business, we have an appointment of Victoria Nye Brown as a recording secretary.
From Michael Units, Town Manager, I hereby notify the Board of Selectmen that in accordance with the provisions of Article 4, Section 2B of the Norton Charter, acting in my capacity as appointing authority, I have appointed the following individual as recording secretary, Victoria Nye Brown. Said appointment was made on January 14, 2020, in accordance with the provisions of the Norton Charter and will be effective January 29, 2020, unless the Board of Selectmen votes to accept or reject the appointment prior to that date. I specifically request the board's acceptance of this appointment with an effective date of January 27, 2020.
Units.
Victoria will be working as the recording secretary for the Water and Sewer Department, so every other Tuesday night, is it? Okay, Victoria's here tonight to say hello.
Hi. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
No problem. I'll be here early and do my job.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the appointment.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Congratulations.
much.
Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you.
Okay, now we're going to jump in new business to Article 7, award presented by Patricia Tarantino of Wreaths Across America to the Norton Highway Department and Norton High School woodworking class. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And we have Michael here, and I already forgot your last name. Belcher. I knew it started with a B. You have to excuse my old age. I have a very short attention span. But Michael is one of the students that worked with Mr. Brown in his wood shop class. Yeah. I sent a photo of the wreath stand that I found online somewhere, and they designed it and made the 7 beautiful wreath stands that we used for the whole month. They were on the Common, if any of you ever saw it. Mm-hmm. They made one. They had me come out and check it out. We had to extend the frame bottom a bit so it wouldn't blow over in the wind, but they made all 7, and they're beautiful.
Thank you.
And now they're back at the high school because the kids wanted to put their names on them. So I said, put them on the back, have fun, store them for the winter if you want. But anyways, Michael, please present this to your class and Mr. Brown.
Okay.
And we're very proud of what you did for us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And representative from the Highway Department, do we have any?
Yep.
Come on up. Come on down. These guys, it's hard not to gush and gush and gush about what the Highway Department did for us. They stepped right up at the very beginning. We were expecting the wreaths to come on the week of the ceremony, and lo and behold, they called as I was in New York City and said, we'll be there in 2 hours. So I called Estelle, and she called the Highway Department, and they were right there for us. The truck came, they came and helped unload everything. Within a week, the wreath boxes were at each cemetery, so you had them at the sheds. They were there and picked up the cardboard boxes after. The wreath retirement was supposed to be on the 14th, or the 11th, sorry, of January, and it looked like it was going to be bad weather again. These gentlemen stepped up and said, we will on Friday go around, pick up all the wreaths, throw them in the truck, burn them, recycle the frames. They were awesome. We really, really can't say enough about it. Over and above. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And just a quick update, in case anybody wants to know. Our goal, as you know, we hoped to get to 650 wreaths. Well, the last 2 weeks before the donations stopped, we ended up collecting enough money for 888 wreaths. So we surpassed by, was that 238 wreaths, which went to Bourne. We were also short, we had a little bit of a hiccup. On the day of the wreaths being laid, we found that we were about 32 wreaths short at the center cemetery. Lo and behold, found out that 8 of our boxes were delivered to the previous place. So I got in touch with the wreath company, and the next day I had 4 boxes at my house. They're going to take the other 4 and put them on this year now. But the next day, Estelle and some of our committee went to the center cemetery, and we placed those wreaths on every grave. So in case anyone out there is thinking we went without, we did not. They came right up, sent the wreaths to us, and every single veteran had a wreath on their grave, which was amazing. What else was I going to say? Oh, and the day we were done placing them, I ended up with 3 extra wreaths. So Christmas Day, I ran down to Bourne to place on these graves. Last year, there were 11,000 wreaths for 77,000 veterans. This year, I had to hunt for a place to put those wreaths. I drove through the entire cemetery, and there were at least 85 to 90% coverage there. I was blown out of the water. So it was amazing how much this grew, and Norton played a big part of that, and I'm very proud of this town. Thank you, and thank you for your support. Some of you did go. I remember seeing Mr. Jack Conway. Did anybody else go? I know Mike was there. We had a brief window of weather that we could put them down. We were being watched over by a lot of veterans, and got them all down, and it was great. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for the...
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay. Let me cross things off before I get confused. We have no licenses and permits announcements. Ms. Conway.
Let's see, Norton Parks and Recreation is soliciting candy donations for the upcoming spring egg hunt. No peanut or nut candy, please. Help them fill eggs for the annual spring egg hunt. Donation boxes are located at Town Hall, and all donations must be received by March 2nd. The egg hunt itself is March 28th with a rain date of April 4th, and will be held at Everett Leonard Park, 6 Parker Street. And also, Parks and Rec is hosting Investing 101, Learn the Nuts and Bolts of Investing. It's free and open to the public. Tuesday, February 25th, at 7 p.m. at the Norton VFW, 38 Summer Street. Please join them for the first of a new monthly series of talks related to investing, led by industry experts. These interactive sessions are designed to offer insight into the process of investing, starting with the basics. February topics include the foundations of investing, bonds, stocks, and packaged investments, the importance of asset allocation. Please RSVP by February 20th to rice@nortonmaus.com. Refreshments will be served.
Anyone else have any announcements?
What's that, Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Jack, did you do that?
We all set?
I just wanted to announce one thing, that this, when you were talking about recreation, that Recreation is looking for lifeguards now, and I know Sharon had prepared a brochure, and she'll be putting them around town, so if you know anyone that's interested in working as a lifeguard at the town pool this summer, and hopefully we'll be here through Labor Day, have them contact Sharon. Sharon, if they're not certified, she has worked out with one of the local Ys, I believe it is, that they'll train them. They're going to be trained in life-saving and recreational pay for 50% of their training in order to encourage them to come on board.
Excellent. Okay, I'm searching around for
Number
a short
6.
topic, yeah.
About number 6.
That's the one I wanted. A vote to accept a land donation to Conservation Commission. It's on Woodward Street rear. We have a map in our packet. Units?
Yeah, this is a parcel of land that is wetland, and we were contacted by the owner. They only pay $500 a year in taxes, and Conservation has recommended that we purchase the land for conservation purposes, and where we only do receive $500 a year in taxes, it's probably more beneficial for us to have the land and put it in our inventory so that when we do go to apply for grants, we show that we've done some efforts to maintain our open space. And Conservation is asking that the Board of Selectmen support that purchase.
So it's a purchase, it's not a donation?
It's $1.
That's a donation. Any questions? Was that a look like yes, but I don't want to?
It's the dollar. I was going to ask, do we have to, like, put this at town meeting so that we can spend $1 to purchase a piece of land?
No, land for conservation purposes does not have to go to town meeting. There's a state statute, so you can purchase it.
No other questions? Chair will entertain a motion to accept or purchase the land at the rear of Woodward Street
So
for
moved.
conservation.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Yep.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, at 7:15, we have a public hearing, a petition from Mass Electric. Mr. Conway, can you read the notice, please?
By this letter, you are notified of a public hearing to be held January 23rd, 2020, 7:15 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Norton Municipal Center, 70 East Main Street, Norton, Mass. 02766, relative to a petition of Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, and of Verizon New England, Inc., DBA Verizon, to relocate poles, wires, cables, and fixtures, including anchors, guys, and other such necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures, along and across the following public way or ways: Leonard Street. The following is to accommodate proposed road work for the Blue Star Business Park. Remove existing pole 1572 and renumber existing pole 1572-84 as pole 1572. Install pole 1572-5 approximately 105 feet east of existing pole 1572-84, and relocate pole 1573 approximately 40 feet east of the existing location.
How you doing?
There's some more, yeah.
Oh, there's more. Is it the second one?
No, that one continues.
All right.
So it's and then.
And petition of Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, and Verizon, DBA Verizon New England, Inc., to install 2 new poles on Plain Street. The first pole is to be approximately 107 feet from pole 2548 and 61 feet from pole 2547, and will be numbered 2547-50. The second pole is to be approximately 124 feet from pole 2543 and 91 feet from pole 2542, and will be numbered 2542-50.
Thank you.
All right, sorry about that.
And your name and,
Michael Frazier, National Grid.
do you want to explain the need for pole relocations?
Yeah, on Leonard Street, the road widening project going on. One of the poles is in one of the new, right in the middle of the new proposed driveway for one of the businesses, so relocating the lines to one section of the lines to the other side of the road, and adding a pole in between and moving one pole over.
Does anyone have any questions regarding the pole relocations and additions? Seeing none.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the request. Oh. Is there anyone in the audience who has any questions regarding the polls? Okay. Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That being said, if no one else has any questions or comments, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the request for the pole relocations.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to wait until 7:30 to take up the next one.
Actually, didn't even have a next one.
Oh,
so-
it's someone else's, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to stay around for it,
No,
or-
you're off the hook then.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Who should we go to next? Anyways, I'm not sure. Oh, okay.
Permanent Building Committee.
Okay. Why don't we skip down to a discussion with the Permanent Building Committee on the status of Town Hall Community Center? Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Confused.
Welcome to my world. I'm here to update you on the activities that the building committee has been pursuing.
Okay.
We have been meeting right along. Our last meeting was the 23rd. Our next meeting will be Monday evening. And we have advanced to an every other week meeting schedule through town meeting. Currently, Mike Viveras is working with us through DVBW out of Providence to do a site selection survey. The criteria that the building committee set down was that it would be within a 2-mile radius of the center of town, because we feel these two buildings, Council on Aging and Town Hall, need to be within the center of town. Mr. Viveras has been doing work so far and has identified 15 possible sites for these two buildings. Part of the criteria is if we put a single building on a single site, that we need it needs to be at least 2 to 3 acres. If we put both buildings on the same site, it needs to be 5 acres plus. The problem we are running into is that, as you are all aware, Norton is between 40 and 44% wetland. So finding a piece of property within the parameters is going to be a challenge. We are working backwards from a town meeting date, trying to get all of the ducks in a row. So we would like to have preliminary site selection to the Board of Selectmen on March 5th, and have you, if you can, make a final site selection on March 19th. Prior to that, the building committee will be reviewing at its Monday night meetings the 15 sites. We will be narrowing those down based on size, location, whether or not they're wet, whether they meet the conservation. We'd like to reduce it down to 3 to 5 sites and have Mr. Viveros focus his energy on the narrowed down sites. And then we will make a recommendation of 3 sites to bring to the board, and then it will be up to you all where you would like to place these 2 buildings within town. We are aiming for the Springtown meeting, but of course that's up to the Board of Selectmen when you want to take it. We're working closely with the Building Department, the Planning Department, the Conservation Commission on this, and Town Manager, so it seems to be quite the group effort. The due diligence is being done, and That's where we are at the moment. We have asked Mr. Units to place a placeholder on the warrant for these, and we are still looking at the same price tag.
The locations that you mentioned, are they publicly owned, or are they mixed?
There's a mix. We are, excuse me, primarily looking at publicly owned. It's always nice to be able to put something on a piece of property you already own. Some of them are privately held. And right now, we're not really looking at that as a deciding termination. We're looking at where the best fit is for the buildings.
Anyone else have any questions?
Mr. Chairman? I do.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mary.
Mike, one of the issues that we wanted to look at was take an inventory of the town buildings that we already have. And James and Matt were working on pulling a report together on the inventory of the schools. Have we gotten any feedback, and do we have a timeline for that?
No, the last time that James and I met with Matt and Joe said he was waiting for some information back from NESDEC,
Okay.
and then would get back to us. And I think they have something on their agenda tonight.
What the school committee does for tonight, okay. Can we put it on our next meeting agenda? Because I just feel that we have to look at what we have before we look at purchasing something else. So either eliminate that option or not, but I don't think we can go through with it being a little bit ambiguous like it has been in the past.
Okay?
Anyone else? Okay.
So John, I just have one question. You mentioned the school committee. I know that there's the other project that's in the works, so you're talking about two projects here. And then I'll have a question for Mike as a follow-up for that. So this, the third project, are you planning on coming to the board with all three in preparation of Springtown meeting?
I believe, excuse me, we're currently working with the school committee. Our liaison is Sherry Cohen, and she's keeping us up to date on how the school feels. That's what you're asking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering.
No, we're
are we
asking,
to
she's
expect
bringing us
three?
up to date how they are.
Yeah.
If they are ready to go for a Springtown meeting, then the building committee would bring that project forward also. And it would be up to the selectmen how you want that to be placed on the ballot.
Okay. Would you mind kindly just giving them a reminder about the date that the article would have to be in, which I think is
Yes.
February 12th?
Okay, I certainly can.
And then, Mike, in respect to the warrant article, so I want to make sure that we're doing this right. I mean, they have two buildings, there's potentially three separate projects. So what's the guidance in respect to the placeholder? Because if we put it on one, but we don't want it all together, do we need to put four so that we have one and then three separate?
Well, when the building committee meets Monday, maybe I can get some more feedback from them, the way they're recommending on that. There'd be either one article or two articles, I would think.
Right, I just want to make sure we don't box ourselves in. So if that means that we have to submit four for
Yeah.
three projects, then let's
As
do it. And then
placeholders. Yeah.
it's easier to take off.
Sure.
We could take off, we can't add, so.
Right.
Let's make sure we plan ahead. Because I don't want to be boxed into a decision that we're not comfortable making because we don't,
We don't have an option.
right, exactly.
Is this the possibility?
Yeah,
Anything else?
thank you.
So,
No worries.
I have one, and it's actually for my fellow board members. Are there any questions that you'd like the PBC to be considering and come prepared with answers for when they come to present in early March? So things that they can make sure that they address. I want to make sure that that first meeting, presentation to us is able to address as many of the questions as we have now, and give them that next 2 weeks to refine answers based on what we see that night.
So I was going to provide you a written response, but one thing that I'll mention, and I know it's been talked about before, please make sure that we have operational expenses, that we understand what that is.
Yes, we will be bringing you a complete package
Okay,
with the sites, and then it will be up to you all to go forward. If you do have specific questions as a board or individually, I will be honest, it would really be helpful to get them in writing.
sure.
As you all know, I'm a process person. I like to tick off everything and make sure I've addressed all issues. So that would be helpful.
And are you planning to present it with essentially like pros and cons of each, so that we understand?
We're going to
scope?
send you our recommendations.
Yeah.
We're going to give you all the information we can. and we are going to strive very diligently to not make your decision for you.
Not that I want the decision made, but I'd like.
No,
to
we're not,
know
we
where
really don't want to
some
lean you
cons.
towards, no, when we bring you the final three,
Yeah.
any of them will work. So we're bringing you solutions. And that said, this will work for this will work for this will work for this. We're not going to bring you something that will have drawbacks within it. If it has a drawback, we're not going to bring it to the board. We're going to put that over to the side.
What would you define as a drawback? Because then the concern is that are we taking something out of scope that we potentially shouldn't? Because
No, I
while it
think
may
if-
be an
if
immediate
we're-
drawback, it may not be long-term.
No, if we find a site that, is wonderful, is absolutely right smack dab in the center of town, but will need wetland replication,
Okay.
that's a drawback. That's what we're looking at. Because that will then add to the cost of the project if you have to replicate a wetland. So we're looking to bring you the cost of a clean site that's large enough, has adequate drainage, has adequate parking, can support its own sewer system or connect to the sewer. We're going to bring you 3 equally good recommendations.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, and I have a question coming to you then about the 5 pros on each site.
Okay. Love to read it.
That's all I have, and I can't off the top of my head think of any, but I will give it a thought.
Yeah,
Send you
people
an
feel
email.
free to send me an email and I'll funnel them. back to my-
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much,
very much.
and thanks to the rest of the group, too, for meeting more frequently to get this done. Appreciate it.
Okay.
7:30.
We're close enough to 7:30 that we have another public hearing. Would you please read the notice?
Public hearing on the application for a transfer of ownership of the common victualler license to expose, keep for sale, and to sell all kinds of alcoholic beverages to be drunk on the premises at 241 Mansfield Avenue, Norton, Mass. 02766, from Timothy G. McCarthy, DBA Alberto's Pub and Pizza, to Alberto's Pub and Pizza, Inc., DBA Alberto's Pub and Pizza. Manager Sheila A. McPherson.
Good evening, Mr. Souza.
Good evening. If anyone doesn't know me, I'm Attorney Henry Sousa, and I represent the applicants this evening. You should have a complete copy of the application for the liquor license transfer. I know this board is undoubtedly very familiar with Alberto's Pub, and unfortunately, the gentleman who began the pub, Mr. Tim McCarthy, is no longer with us. He's passed on. And his 2 sisters, Sheila McPherson and Patricia McCarthy, have inherited his estate, including the business. To carry on the pub, they've formed a corporation, Alberto's Pub and Pizza, Inc. And quite obviously, what we're trying to accomplish here this evening is to transfer the license into the name of the corporation, which is the only appropriate thing to do at this point. Can't remain in Tim's name, so we hope you will agree to transfer the license to the corporation.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
Have a comment. I think that the transfers will be in very good hands and continue to operate well and treat their employees well. So I think this is a great thing.
Yep, I've had several people already say to me this evening, including my own wife, that I better make sure that this happens because she wants to be able to have a glass of wine when she comes in after golfing. I guess I have a vested interest in this, too.
Unfortunately, the alcohol isn't the part that is my downfall. It's, and my waistline can prove it. And
I stopped drinking and the waistline didn't get any better.
I have to tell you that I have a daughter who lives in Attleboro who will have things delivered to my house because they don't deliver to Attleboro. So that's an indication of how much they like your products.
Thank you.
Does anyone, Mary?
I know this is probably bittersweet for you guys, and I just want to say that, Tim was such a generous and kind man. He really supported this town, the youth groups, everything he possibly could in any way that he could. He was always very professional and kind when he came before us, and so I'm just really pleased that you're able to carry on his legacy. And thank you. Alberta's means a lot to this town, not only because it's a great establishment to eat and drink, but because it really is an integral part of our town. So thank you.
He did so many things so quietly.
Yeah.
And we're trying to continue that, so come to us if there's something we're missing. We're trying to find a little late everything, but any heads up, I appreciate it.
Sure.
We appreciate everything you do. And everybody can't get here to voice their appreciation for it. So from the people of Norton, we appreciate everything you do over there, too.
Thank you, Sheila and Patricia, to try to keep Tim's legacy alive. And I agree with Mary. Tim was a wonderful guy and a good guy, and he loved Alberta and he loved this town very much. And he sure loved my Peter Chillin, and he's up in heaven saying, continue to make Alberta thrive. And I go there a lot of times, and they got good food and good service. Right, Sheila and Patricia and
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? If not, I'm sorry. If not,
Maybe ditto.
Chair will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That being said, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the request for the transfer of the liquor license. Trying to see from Tim McCarthy doing businesses Alberto's Pub and Pizza to Alberto's Pub and Pizza Incorporated doing business as Alberto's Pub and Pizza. Pizza, manager Sheila A. McPherson.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call.
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Just a small point of order, quite obviously, we're also looking for the transfer of any other licenses that were held by Mr. McCarthy. So it's not just the liquor license. I know that there are several others there that need to be transferred along with it.
Those we can do behind the scenes.
But again, thank you for your kind words. I know that Sheila and Tricia appreciate it. And have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Okay. Okay, now, we're, a presentation by Tom Scanlon of the Town Audit.
There you go. They're waiting to... He's coming.
It's your turn. Good evening.
Good evening. I was up in the green room down there.
Yeah.
How's everyone doing tonight? For those that don't, I see a couple new faces. For those that don't know, I'm Tom Scanlon Jr. I'm the managing partner at Scanlon Associates. We did the independent audit for the town. It's still in draft form, because we're waiting on one number from your healthcare, yeah. So I was going to kind of walk you through the financial statements and answer any questions. Just a general background, we're doing a financial audit, which we're opining on your financial statement. That's the overall objective of it. We assess risk on your financial statements, do a lot of our testing in the collector's office and treasurer's office. We do a lot of analytical, spend time at the school department, which is probably your largest department outside of the town hall here. We issued a clean opinion on the financial statement, which was good. So when you go into the bond market, it can be good. Grant award agencies will look at that, which is good. Overall, the town's financial reporting is really good. You have sound controls over your key accounts, which is your cash, receivables, expenditures, and payroll, which is always good to hear. We had no adjustments, no major adjustments to the financial statements. We had no disagreements with management, so which is also good. So it's a nice, clean audit from an outside perspective. So you should have financial statements in front of you. And, the first letter is the audit opinion, which is the clean opinion. So, So I don't know how familiar you are with governmental financial statements, but they're kind of unique. You just don't have one balance sheet and one P&L. You actually have multiple ones, which seems strange, but it's the way you look at them. One's full accrual and one's not full accrual. So the first statement's on page 15 and 16. It's like your first two. These are your entity-wide financial statements. This is full accrual, as depreciation has your fixed assets. So if you borrow and build a building, we're going to put the building on there, it's going to be depreciated. Again, depreciation's not in your budgets that you're adopting. So again, this is an entity-wide perspective. And one of the key, I call these financial statements for accountants. And really what to get out of these financial statements, when you look under governmental activities, unrestricted net position, you'll see a negative in brackets, a negative 73 million. Usually that's not good when your net position is in the negative. The key drivers on that, which we talk about every year, if you go under non-current liabilities, is the OPEB liability, which I know we talked about OPEB over and over again for the past several years. For those who don't know what it is, it's your retirees' health costs. It's the promises you made to your retirees. It's a promise you made to them, and it goes on your financial statement, so it measures it actuarial based. I don't believe 75 million is your true liability, but it's a measurement from your actuary that has to go on. But OPEB is long-term thinking, as we talked about in the past. It's really how you look at it. You adopted an OPEB trust, which I believe you have $500,000 in it at June 30th, which is good, but it's really long-term thinking on the OPEB strategies, building your trust up, looking at your plan designs. And then the other liability that's triggering that 73 million is your pension. Again, you're on a funding schedule. You're being assessed every year by the county retirement. So that will be funded at some point in time, I think 2032, 28, 29. One of the factors is when that becomes fully funded, your assessment should drop. And at that given point in time, you should give serious consideration about contributing more to your OPEB trust. I don't know if there's any questions about OPEB, if you have any. I know we talked about it, yep.
So you said that we have 500,000 in OPEB right now? So what's your recommendation? Because you also said 75 was way too high, 75 million was too high.
Yeah, 75 million, I mean, I wouldn't focus on the $75 million liability, but somewhere there's the truth to it. It's not zero. I would try to aim, usually the general rule of thumb is like 10% of your ARC, which the actuary figures out was like 2.7 million. So shooting in the ballpark to 250, 300 every year, putting into your OPEB trust. I would encourage that to come from your tax levy, not taking it from a reserve and put it in there. Usually don't take in a reserve like free cash or stabilization funds and put it into a restricted OPEB, so I'd rather have it come from the tax rate, but that's my personal suggestion. But really, your OPEB trust is really a long-term thing. If you think of it as a long-term stabilization fund, building it up to a certain target, say 10 million. Once you get to the 10 million, start charging retirees' health costs there from your budget.
So you're saying target 2.7 million and then target 10 after that?
No, so 2.7 is actually saying you should be putting that in every year to your trust.
Oh, okay.
However, I don't think you have that budget flexibility to do that. So roughly 10% of that is a good planning figure. So 250 to 300 to put into the trust. And then I would have a target goal with your trust. I'm throwing a number out there, say it's 10 million. And then once you hit that 10 million number, after that, you're going to start charging retirees' health costs, which is currently in your budget. You're going to be charging to the trust, which is going to be another funding source for you in your budget. That's why it's really long-term thinking. And really, OPEB, the way you look at it is the really only decline in OPEB is through the expiration of people. That's how it's going to go down, because it's a promise you made. So when you look, you should look at your retirees that you had 10 years ago to the retirees you have now. I believe that number has increased to your town. So you do have an OPEB issue. And the way to think about it is, when you hire someone, if they say you hire them at $52,000, that's a hard cost. That's coming out of your banks. That's coming. You're budgeting for that. But a piece of that, you made a promise to them that when they retire, you're going to pay X amount of their health insurance. So, and that's the piece you got to factor in putting into your trust. So it's really long-term thinking and how should be part of your mental thinking as you put in your budgets together and your personnel costs. That's your largest cost within the town, is your personnel cost. And there's a measure in there that you're not funding. That kind of makes sense?
Yes.
So, really long-term thinking, OPEB. Don't focus on the 75 million, because you'll lose sleep at night.
What's the current balance in OPEB?
That is out on page 26. It's 514,000 at June 30th, 19. I think you put 100,000 in it for 20. So, as we speak, you figure just over 6.
Was it 90 or 100, James? Nine? Yeah.
Right in between. And then, so these first two are really NE-wide, it's full accrual. Really, what's finance statements that I think management, most people can relate to, is on pages 17 and 18, which are the next two. And this is not full accrual. This is, you can see it's deferred revenue. You're not collecting all you're offsetting your receivables, so deferred, you're not recognizing as revenue. The key on here is on your general fund. When you look at unassigned, the 7.6 million, that should be your stabilization fund balance plus your free cash, which is your free cash is about 4.1. Your stabilization was right around 3 million. Your two of them, your capital.
Are you on 17 or 18?
17 on your balance sheet. Should be 3 columns: general fund, Cyrus Hicks, and non-major. And then the 7.6 unassigned. That should be your free cash and stabilization. A good benchmark, when you should compare that number to your budget, and your budget's approximately about 60 million. That number's 11%. A good, sound, really good number is 10%, so you're just above that threshold, and encouraged to keep it there. I know the town has a practice of, and again, this is at June 30th, then in the fall time, you use free cash to fund budget items. Roughly, you've been using about 20 to 25% put back into operations, which is good. The way you're using your free cash and the way your practices on your financials, on your reserves are very sound, because you're getting that back in the next year in your free cash. So how you're using it, I would keep using it that way. So your reserves, your policies are really working off your financial statements. And I think it's always important to look at your financial statements and see where free cash is coming from to make sure the numbers line up. Cyrus Hicks, it's presented separately because it's a major fund if it exceeds 10%. But the non-major funds are your grant funds, your capital projects, your revolving funds. And then part of the report, when you get the full report out back, we break those out. I would encourage to look at those to see if you see anything that interests you, looking at the revolving funds to see. I always encourage management to kind of look at those special revenue funds to see what they're being used, see if any questions on them. And then the kind of last statement I kind of want to walk through with you, and which I think is most important, is on page 21. Should be 3 after what we just talked. This is kind of I probably think it's the most important financial statements for management, governments to look at. This is your budget versus actual. The first column is the encumbrances. Those are the amounts of budgets you carry forward for committed projects or any outstanding invoices that you incurred at the end of June you brought forward. The next column is your original budget, and then the final budget. That's after all special town meetings, reserve transfers, and then the actual column. That's your actual expenses, actual revenue. And then the amounts carried forward to next year's budget, continuing appropriations. As we see the last column over, that is where your free cash is coming from. So you generated of the current budget about 3.7 of your 4.2 free cash. So that tells me approximately about 500,000 got carried forward from the previous year. So you're using your free cash and you're generating it. If we look on the top part of your revenues, 2.4, you generated your free cash. And we look at the excise and other taxes, about 1.2. You're very conservative on your excise, which is, I think, is very good because that's market-based. It's based on cars value and purchases. So you're not increasing that and not generating it. So it'd be, if you were to switch your policy and start increasing your local receipts, you couldn't in the fall time start using free cash because you'd be double dipping. So I think it's very important to know where your free cash is coming from and how it's being generated and how you're budgeting. And I would consider this sound financial procedures in place. And then you can see on your appropriations, you turned back 1.2 million. Approximately 277,000 of that is to deal with state assessments, and those can fluctuate from year to year. I don't really measure those as turnbacks because they can fluctuate too much, unreliable. So your true turnback is about 900,000. But you're looking at your budget, I mean, I think it's very responsible in spending. It's appropriate in your turnbacks. And we have them in the categories, and outside of the state assessment, you see employee benefits and insurance. Again, that can fluctuate with healthcare costs and people coming onto the plan. So again, you're very conservative, which is sound. And that's kind of, I always think it's important to know how your free cash, it jumped up approximately $1 million. You can see right from this statement kind of dictates that. You see under the final budget, how you funded your budget was 2.7 in free cash. You used to fund it, and then you generated 3.7. So your free cash should have went up $1 million on what you did. And that's kind of all I really have for you. Like I said, you have sound controls over your key accounts, and I can't stress that enough. And again, if you have any questions throughout the year, if you have any concerns, you want certain areas looked at, be happy to do that. I always encourage communications with management. I don't know if you have any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said for free cash, we're looking at a 10% total budget for the target.
Not free cash and stabilization together.
Free cash and stabilization?
Yeah. Because ideally, they're, in my opinion, they're the same thing. The only thing that separates them is two-thirds vote when using them.
Okay, so what if you were to break those out separately?
As far as-
Recommendations on where stabilization, so if free cash and stabilization together are 10% of the budget,
Sure, that's a target, yes. How you segregate that target, that's really,
then where are we now? Because you said we're at 11%
You're like-
free cash, so then what do we have?
free cash and stabilization
And
together,
stabilization,
you're at
we're
11%, yeah. Which is, if you go to that, the governmental balance sheet on page 17.
Yep.
That unassigned, that 7.6 is your free cash and your stabilization funds.
Unassigned, under general fund?
Yeah, general fund, yeah. So you see assigned 4.9. What that is your free cash that you use for next year's budget plus your encumbrances.
So assigned is free cash, unassigned is stabilization?
No, unassigned is free cash and stabilization together.
Okay.
And then assigned is your encumbrances. So the most important number on here is the 7.6.
So we're slightly above.
Yeah, you're like 11, I think you're 11.5.
Well, we just spent like, what, 300,000 out of it?
At the October meeting, about 360, somewhere in that range.
Of what, free cash?
640, 360 on the budgets, and then we funded other,
Capital items.
What was that, James?
We funded some capital items at the October town meeting, so free cash was reduced by about 660,000.
and the 500,000 for the tear down of the building on Elm Street.
We also put $500,000 out of free cash into the stabilization fund, and 95,000 out of free cash into the OPEC trust account.
So if you look at free cash and stabilization together,
Mm-hmm.
right, why do we look at it separately? And if we do look at it separately, where should those percentages lie? Because stabilization requires 2/3 vote, we should have less in stabilization than,
From an accounting perspective, it's the same. It's a reserve, whether you call it. Free cash and stabilization is Mass General Law dictated. But when you look at your reserves in total, it's the same, whether you call it free cash stabilization. From a GAAP accountant's perspective, it's still a reserve. So they should be looked at together.
okay, so,
If you want certain percentages, you divide that in half, 5 and 5.
or you would say in theory to, and I don't want to say have easier access to the money because that's not the right terms, but in theory, you would want free cash slightly higher than stabilization because people
Yeah,
would
that's,
not give votes for
I mean, that's
stabilization.
more politically sensitive than it is, reserve
Yeah.
sensitive, so,
So what does the state say that we use stabilization funds for?
say that again.
What does the state say, like, what are the mandates to use stabilization?
Any legal purpose,
So there's no difference?
no difference, just the voting of using it 2/3 for stabilization, majority for free cash. I think with stabilization funds, you can have multiple ones. You can have, free cash for building stabilization, free cash for, but they don't, that's just for name only. You don't have to use it for those purposes. I guess that's more politically sensitive than it is.
So it means nothing in respect to, like, how we're positioned in financial strength or soundness? Like,
Something-
if we had less money in stabilization, would the town,
That number wouldn't change, so bond rating companies are looking at that 7.6 million.
they're looking at it collectively?
Yeah, they don't, 'cause from a GAAP perspective, which is generally accepted accounting principles, stabilization and free cash is the same.
The way I've always looked at it is, they're both kind of like savings accounts, and one of them, I'm going to show how old I am, one of them was your Christmas club.
Or what?
Years ago, you used to have a Christmas club. It was a savings account that you'd put like maybe $50.
I did that as a kid. You ever did that?
You'd have $50 a month in your Christmas club. So at the end of the year, you'd have the money to buy your Christmas presents.
It must have been 70s thing.
I don't know. That's why I said I'm going to show my age, but technically it was all savings. And if I needed money in the Christmas club to go make a payment on a car, the state wasn't going to come down and tell me I couldn't, but
That must be a New England thing.
it gave you this warm
Hey, man.
feeling to think that, oh, I got that money all set, so that when I spend $3,000, I've got $600 in my savings. It's all semantics. It's all savings, but it makes you think in your mind, you've got it targeted for someplace. Okay, I've showed my age.
Well, Jack's
I'll be
younger than me,
quiet.
and he knows what you're talking about. That's why I think it must be a New England thing.
Yeah, see?
Anyone here that's not from New England?
I feel younger already.
You never heard of it?
Did I answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other-
And then some.
So, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, a stabilization fund is more of a secure fund, because it takes a 2/3 vote, whereas the money in free cash is easier to spend. So if you spend your free cash.
Thank you.
And you're not keeping up funding your stabilization account, then it's easier to run into problems in the future.
Correct, yeah. Correct. It's more politically sensitive. I mean, I know a lot of towns, when they look at that number, they'll say, one town in particular comes to mind, they voted $2 million from free cash in the stabilization fund, and they expect that number to go up. Well, it's not going to go up. You use it from reserve to reserve, from a GAAP
Right.
perspective. But if you took $2 million and you raised and appropriated it, and you took it from taxation, you put it into stabilization fund, you would see that increase of $2 million, because it's a funding source coming in. I think that's the most important perspective to take out of that when you're building your reserves. And should focus on that. Reserves are good. And 11%, you're sound. I'd hate to have you, I think there was a point in time where you weren't 10, 11%.
What's bad? Like what's the lowest that we would want to be at? I mean, 10% is the target, but where?
10% is considered good. You start getting below 10%, 5 to 10 is average. As you get closer to 5, when they look at you. You get below 5, you probably got some other issues going on.
So just say wiggle room, like down to 8%.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yeah, but I would not encourage it.
I'm just wondering.
It's always wiggle room.
Right.
You got to have a plan. I mean, general rule of thumb is when you look at your financials, if you start using your reserves to fund items, and you should see your fund balances going down. Then when you go into your bond rating calls that James is in, usually they see 3 years in a row of trends, then they start getting concerned. And they'll say, hey, do you have a plan to put back up to your reserves? So you can dip below as long as you have a plan to get back.
Gotcha.
So people are looking at that. Your bond rating agencies, you meet probably, once a year, and go through it, and they are looking at that, and they are giving you credit for it. So and just from an accountant's perspective, I always think having reserves, you can make better financial decisions, knowing that you have that in the back of your mind, that if you do have emergency that comes up, you can tap into it. You're not borrowing for everything. You're not sacrificing budgets. So, and again, your financial policies are sound, and your financial accounting is really sound. Really, I can't say enough about it.
How long have you done our audits?
I think this is my personally his 12th year as audit manager partner. So I'm familiar with the town. And again, we have just to give perspective, we have 5 people who come out. 5 people. Again, we do all our testing. We really do a lot of testing at the bank statement level and on the receivable level. We go out to the school for a couple days. We do a lot of analytics there. Try to look at the revolving funds. We looked at athletic revolving this year and school lunch. Then we try to hit like the outlier departments, water and sewer. We focus on their receivables and their budget. Focus a lot on grants. Veterans, we do testing in there too to make sure you're getting the correct amount back from the state that you're submitting. So you have sound controls over your key areas on that.
Can, the numbers in here, do they include the water sewer as well?
Yes.
Because I saw one page that looked like it was dedicated to water and sewer.
Yeah, so that's why you'll see 3 balance sheets throughout your financial statements, which on page 23 is your water and sewer fund. And again, because they're considered a business type fund, so they're full accrual, so you're recognizing the revenue when you bill, and you also have depreciation in here. So I usually like to go, if you look at their unrestricted, you see that they're healthy. Again, they're more user-based.
And so the numbers on here, like the OPEB and pension, those roll into the overall numbers that you reviewed with us?
Say that again?
The numbers that, like for the net OPEB liability?
Yes.
That feeds into the numbers that you reviewed?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yeah, everything in part of these we audit. So their cash we audit, their receivables we audit, their accounts payable, their accrued payroll.
So am I reading this correctly, that there's about 12 million sitting in 17 million in the water sewer fund?
Net position, but part of net position is the fixed assets, so you got to back out 10 million.
Okay.
So those aren't liquid, per se.
So about 7 million
Yes,
in cash on hand?
yes. And if you kind of look at it, usually on full accrual, which these are, I kind of look at the cash. So if you go look at the cash across, it's 9.8 million, and then take away the liabilities, and you're right at that same number.
Okay.
So,
Is that normal for a water or sewer?
yeah, I mean, I think you're sound. I mean, the thing about water and sewer funds, your reserves can be snapped like a dime. DEP comes in and says you have to do pipe over a project, can be in a blink of a dime, and it rolls into bonds and your rates increase. Part probably, but, in one statement, if you, on page 25, that's more of a cash flow. That'll give you a better understanding of what they're spending on a cash basis. We should have full reports like in a couple of weeks. Again, if you have any questions after that you have, you can email me or call me or anything.
So is that saying that there's a net increase of $2.8 million?
Yes. A lot of it had to do with the Water Enterprise Fund with the water pollution abatement project you have. So the water pollution abatement project, or Mass Clean Water Trust, what they're called now, it's not a typical borrowing where you'd go out to the bond market and say you issue $8 million in bonds. $8 million comes into your bank account. The way the Mass Clean Water Trust works is they do drawdowns, so you don't get the $8 million that you could borrow $8 million, but it's going to come into your bank account over the course of like 2 years as you draw down the monies.
Okay.
So that can havoc with the accounts receivable and cash flow and spending of the things.
So the drawdown here is almost at 6.2 million?
Yeah, and then I believe you should have a corresponding, so then you had acquisitions of 6.4 million, and then you had a bond proceeds of 1.8. So the increase as far as the cash goes in the water fund has really to do with borrowings. That's why this is kind of a good schedule, kind of give you a look at how things flow from a cash base when you look at a full accrual.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Those members of the Finance Committee, do they have any questions?
I think I answered their questions already.
Okay.
We met ahead of time.
Okay.
Coming off this cold for like 2 weeks, I don't know, been around, I don't know, Western Mass, I think everyone's had it, every school department's had it. My kids come home with it, and
Yeah.
it's like recycling through my house.
No one has any other questions? Okay. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Tom.
much.
Yeah, thanks seeing everyone.
Thank you.
Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email or, any concerns. It's not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Let's see. Presentation by the Community Preservation Review Committee. Oh, good grief.
No. No.
Yeah. That's why we need a bigger room. When we have so many guests, we have to keep them,
In the green room.
yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
I am doing very well, thank you. So first, I'd like to thank you very much for keeping my margaritas safe at Alberto's. I'm very happy about that. So for those of you I don't see very often, I am Sharon Rice, and I am in charge of Parks and Rec here at the Town Hall. But today, we're here to talk about the Community Preservation Act. So I'd like to introduce the committee.
Zach Hills, all play out.
And we do have a fifth member, Kathy Zawoski, who couldn't be with us tonight. Anyway, we're pleased to be here to talk to you about all the benefits of this wonderful program and to hopefully convince you that this is the next best step for Norton. So I know you received slides in your packet, and Mike's going to put them up there for us. Hopefully, yes.
I don't think Mike's going to do it.
No, that's true. So I'll just get started while it's coming, while we're waiting on that. So the CPA, Community Preservation Act, is a state-run program that provides a steady, dedicated source of funding for 4 buckets: affordable housing, historic restoration and preservation, open space preservation, and of course my favorite, which is recreation projects. And there are many benefits to this program, but that is still not right.
That's not one of them.
So what the CPA does is it provides funds to support these things without using town money. And that allows the town to take money for these things and use it for other stuff. So it's a win-win-win-win everywhere. And there is free cash involved because, I shouldn't use that term because there was a big discussion about free cash, and but there's funds from the state, so there's free money that Norton has been leaving on the table because we haven't approved this. So in your packets, there's that really big with minute, yes. That is a chart that lists all the towns in the Commonwealth and what they have earned from this program since inception. The first column will show you when they started the program and how much they've earned. So Norton has a 0 there, but you can see that the towns that were early adopters of this have made some significant money.
Do you know the highest offhand, like I see a 3.3 million? Actually?
Cambridge is the biggest. I believe they were like 11 million, but obviously they have really high property values, so.
Boston's at 20.
I'm sorry?
Boston's at 20.
Yeah. So, but if you look at some of the comparable towns, I think Easton is made like 7 million. I mean, it's really, really can be lucrative. So there's a lot of pluses, as I mentioned. The state funding is part of the program here, and the unique feature to this is that how the funds are spent is controlled by the voters. So that's really, I think, an attractive part as a resident here. The funds cannot be used for town expenses, but it does cover costs that are currently in the town budget. So we'll get to that a little bit later, and I can give you some examples of some of the things that had we had the CPA, we wouldn't have had to pay for out of the town budget. The other benefit is that the funds don't have to be spent on an annual basis. So you can accrue, if you're planning something off in the future, you can accrue the funds and save them and then not borrow, when you have the time.
Is there a limit, time-wise or amount on what you can accrue?
I believe not, no. So where does the money come from? That's a big question. So it comes from 2 sources. There's a local property surcharge, and then there's a state match that it's not dollar for dollar, but it comes from the Registry of Deeds, all of the fees that they charge for different real estate transactions.
Refinancing, all the fee structures built in there that go into CPA revenues.
Okay, so every town has these fees. So Norton residents, when they buy property or they refinance or whatever, they're paying these fees, and these fees are going to support this program in other towns, not here at home. We are recommending, the legislation allows up to 3%, and we are recommending a surcharge of 1.5%. We are recommending also a standard exemption of $100,000 per residential property. We are not recommending any exemptions for commercial property at all. We are also recommending the standard real estate exemptions that are already existing here in town for real estate. If you have a real estate exemption already for your taxes, you automatically get this exemption as well. So low-income elderly, disabled veterans, the blind, there's some hardship cases, and it's all spelled out in the real estate, through the assessor's office.
Excuse me.
Yes.
With the exemption of 100,000 per residential, but not to the businesses, but the businesses, they still pay into this, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, we're recommending that.
Even though we don't have a split tax rate, we can,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
sorry, even though we don't have a split tax rate in town, we're able to differentiate between residential and business for this program?
Yes.
Yeah.
For the exemption?
Yes.
And that's the recommendation we're making. You guys can decide to change your mind on that.
Okay. So the example,
I just want to make sure,
yes,
and this is a surcharge that is charged at the time of a sale?
no. This is done on an annual basis. So it would be added to your, it is not a tax. So that's an important thing to note. But it is added to your real estate tax bill. So I believe you can do it in one quarter bill, or maybe you can split it into two. So it would be added to that, but those funds are earmarked for CPA.
The match, there's a state match that comes from the Registry of Deeds. Right now, every resident in Norton, if they refinance their home, if they take an equity line of credit, if they buy or sell a property, pay fees that are in your closing costs that you don't see to the Registry of Deeds. Currently, what's been going on is those fees are being redistributed to other towns because Norton does not participate in this program. What we're saying is, if we go with a 1.5% surcharge on your taxes, which would be around $40, $44 on a $300,000 home per year, you could then dip into that fund, state fund, and get matching funds from the state that we're currently giving up to other towns.
So if we have a,
Surcharge goes into a CPA budget or account, which the state.
Very separate from the town budget.
And it's separate from the town, and that's where their money goes into, your money goes into, and that's where the funds come out of if you do a project. So it should appear like it should appear as surcharge on your property tax bill.
Towns, you can go from 1 to 3%. We're recommending 1.5% with a $100,000 deduction, which most towns that we researched are doing the $100,000 deduction to not hit people that can't afford it.
Does that 1.5% that doesn't stay in the town, that goes to the state?
That goes in a separate fund.
In town?
Into a CPA fund. If you were to
So we
pass
can
that,
use those
It
funds?
would go into a CPA fund, and then you would get matching funds on top of that from the state.
The town will have an individual CPA.
If you look at that long
Account
form,
labeled Norton CPA, and that's where all the funds will go.
if you look at that long form, you'll see where it says what the town collected and what the match was.
So, and then it goes into the CPA fund, and we can use it for affordable housing, historic restoration, open space preservation, or recreation projects.
Right, but those, if you, as we'll go through, you'll see there's some more specific examples. You could build a rail trail, you could do, put a splash pad in, I mean, so there's more, there's a lot that you can work with.
It's about building the community.
Exactly, it's preserving, in my opinion, and in towns that are struggling financially, these are the areas that are compromised usually when it comes to the funding. So this is a way to preserve part of the community that you wouldn't, you got a lot of other demands for your money. So this is a way to make sure that the heart and soul of a community is preserved physically in these different areas.
Not to interrupt Sharon, but this was inaugurated, so to speak, in the state of Massachusetts in 2002. And several years ago, I don't know if Mike could think back, or you weren't here actually, we tried to put this through at the town meeting or present it to the public once definitely, and perhaps twice. Mary, you
Yeah, we
remember?
did, yeah, and it
And it
failed.
never went anywhere, and I don't know why.
I don't think it was-
There were 175 cities and towns in the state of Massachusetts that jumped on the wagon way back when, and our monies, as has been pointed out, are simply going into this, all the transactions at the Registry of Deeds are simply going to the state without us taking advantage of any of that pot. And it's kind of foolish. It's money, as
Absolutely.
Sharon has pointed out, is going to be left on the table.
So I guess I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was thinking the same thing while Sharon was speaking, thinking back to when it had been defeated, and at the time thinking, why would we defeat this? I'm thinking maybe at that time it wasn't explained completely to the residents, and they saw it more as a tax. They just didn't want to pay the money, I don't know, but it is, you're right, it is unfortunate that we didn't do it years ago, and now we're kind of catching up, but it's a fantastic program.
Let me just add, I believe when that was proposed years ago, and it was long before my time, but from what I've read, looking into it, I believe it was structured differently. This has evolved over the years. The law has changed, and originally way back, I think they were putting a tax on real estate agents, and the business community was up in arms over it, and that's why it got killed in a lot of communities. Right now, that's not the way it is. It's a surcharge like a property tax, at whatever you want to put, 1, 2, 3%, up to 3%, and you get those matching funds from the state. So it has evolved over the years.
So can I ask, and if you're going to cover this, I can wait.
Absolutely.
But have we looked at what we're spending on these things now in the budget that would actually come out of the budget as a cost savings to the town?
There are some examples that we'll get to a little bit later, and I threw some dollar amounts where I had them.
We can wait till later. That's
Okay.
fine if you want to go through the presentation.
Yeah.
To be understood, you can't use these funds for maintenance.
No, I understand, but I mean, to your earlier point, you know, we're funding these things now through our budget. So what I'd like to, you know, I mean, we're asking people to give more money, right? That's the bottom line, and that's what everybody's going to focus on. But if we reduce our budget, because yes, we're having the surcharge that, you know, maybe typically paid somewhere else, but we're also getting this extra activity, then it reduces our budget, or extra money, then it reduces our budget even more. So that's, I want to kind of tick and tie those together.
Sure.
To see where the real benefit lies.
Right.
But I would say on that, I would say 0, because how much money have you spent to upgrade a ball field? How much money have you spent in the budget to build a park?
Yeah.
How much money have you spent in the budget in the last coming years to restore a historical property? I'm gonna guess that's this,
Well,
because that money doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, the purchase
Right now, every time
price.
we try to do something, not to interrupt, is fundraiser.
Right, well, that's the thing, right? We raised $60,000 for the town common, right? Which could have been funded through this. So
Correct.
that's the thing, because that's money people are giving. You know, I probably gave through people staying there holding something, like $100, where I could have just paid a $40 surcharge and gotten the extra from the state. So that's kind of what I want to understand.
Not to mention the money you've paid, or the residents have paid, into the registry of deeds that go to Easton and
Right.
176 other communities that participate in this program.
To answer your question, if you want to jump ahead to page 16, the town common restoration is the first thing here. These are some things that were in the budget that we could have paid for. Again, as Parks and Rec, I am kind of chipping away at some of the repairs that we definitely need at Everett Leonard, you know, a couple of thousand here. The pavilion and the pool house are literally falling apart. We got holes in the walls, and the town portion of what we paid for Edith Reed, for the land portion of that, which was over $136,000, and the following cleanup, which was over $18,000. The pond cleanup that we've been doing ongoing, we have some significant funds there. Also going back to Edith Reed, I believe, I spoke with Jen from Conservation. There was some, we missed out on some matching funds that we could have gotten from the land grant because we didn't have the right kind, or enough. So these are just a few examples, but, you know, I'm certain we could find more. And so you're right, Renee, when you say that, you know, we're asking people to pay more, but we're asking them to pay minimally more. If we could go back to slide 7, the average home here in Norton is valued at $370,000. So we would take that and give the $100,000 exemption, which would bring the annual tax to $59.94. So that's less than $5 a month. You know, depending on, again, the property values, and you can see the chart of how that would play out. But even if you have a $700,000 home, annually it's $133. I mean, it's not a lot of money, and you'll see it's a very big reward for the town. So the next slide talks about some of the projects that other towns have done. So East Hampton has, you know, restored their town hall. Newton did some elderly housing, which I know is a big concern here in town and not something we have a lot of. Rail trail, open space, a lot of it goes to that.
Can you pronounce that next one,
Sure.
please?
I'm sorry?
Can you pronounce that next one under Grafton?
Under Grafton. Oh, yes, sure. Oh, boy. I don't know. Sorry. I had to look up how to spell Winnicott. That was enough. So the incentive for this program from the state is the matching funds. So as Zach mentioned, as this fund has grown, as the more and more towns have adopted this, the kind of the pot has gotten smaller and smaller, the portion that goes to the towns. But the Registry of Deeds has revamped their fee structure and gone significantly up. So for 2020, the estimated match is 11.57%, which is still great. But for 2021, when they've replenished this fund, they're anticipating it to be 40% match. So again, a hefty amount of money, and you're asking taxpayers to pay, the average taxpayer to pay less than $5 a month. So assuming you folks agree that this is a great thing, how does it get passed? So we need a town meeting vote, and we need it on the ballot. If it's passed, it stays in place for 5 years. And again, as I had mentioned, this is really in the hands of the voters, so it can be amended at any time at a town meeting. And to date, no community that has passed this has ever repealed it. So it's been around for 18 years, right? Page 11 just gives us a little bit of guidelines on what you can do with this money. So you can do acquisitions, you can create, you can preserve, rehabilitate, and restore. But as Zach mentioned, you cannot use it for maintenance. So who decides where the money will be spent? Ultimately, the bottom line, it's in the hands of the voters, but the act requires that a community preservation committee be formed, and you must have representatives from specific groups. So Conservation, Historical Commission, Housing Authority, Parks and Rec, the Planning Board, and then up to 4 additional members. Many towns, that would be one of you. Doesn't have to be, could be anyone, but tend to be the select board that are involved. And this group makes recommendations, but again, it has to go to town meeting, and then those folks decide, they vote whether to fund whatever it is that needs to be done.
Is it majority vote?
Well, it's done at a town meeting, so I would imagine it has to be, I don't know, you're saying majority or 2/3?
Bring it to town meeting, so the board would vote, whatever it may be, and they have to go to town meeting for approval at that point.
Right, but are you saying is the town meeting vote
Is the town
2/3
meeting-
or?
Yeah, is it 2/3 or majority?
That I don't know.
2/3 would only be for borrowing, you wouldn't be borrowing any money here.
So, I'm sorry?
What was that?
You're also allowed to say that you don't have somebody from conservation or historical that wants to be on the board. You're allowed to appoint somebody to represent
That board.
that board.
And who appoints? Is it the Board of Selectmen that appoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So just over half of the, over 50% of the Commonwealth, all the cities and towns have adopted the CPA. Plainville is one of the most recent. If you look on the right, this map, it's really hard to see, but on the right is some of the area towns that have passed it.
Want to just,
I'm sorry?
want to just read those? So
Oh, sure, you want me to read them? Bridgewater, Canton, Dartmouth, Dayton, Easton, Norwood, Plainville, Rehoboth, Seekonk, Sharon, Swansea, West Bridgewater, Rentham. So here's where the numbers come in. So this chart's a little hard to read, but we got these projections from the CPA up in Boston. They were not able to use our current tax rate of 14.8, so they used, their software wouldn't let them use 2020 rates. So this is based on 14.90, which is the,
FY19.
yeah, it's just marginally higher. Without any match, at the 1.5%, our revenue would be 418,000. The 1% is 279. So for that extra 0.5%, the return to the town, and therefore the higher the match, it just seemed to be a no-brainer to recommend the higher amount.
I know you said most towns have, what were the two things? I wrote it down. What are most towns doing, 1.5?
They're all over the place. A lot of them do 3.
That long sheet there that you have.
Oh, this actually shows that percentage?
Yeah.
Yes.
One of those columns that shows it, I think.
I mean, the Cape towns, as you might imagine, do 3%. Some of the Berkshire towns do 3%.
And those towns that have the 3%, give or take, are taking more of the percentage of the pot.
Yeah. Because
From the
it's,
matching
Because
funds.
because they're
They're
bringing in
putting
more.
into it.
yeah.
Plus, they get to participate in second and third drawings on the money, which you don't.
What does that mean?
Well, it's kind of convoluted how they do it. You get an initial match, and then money that's left over, they have second drawings.
Second distributions,
Distribution.
depending on how much
Okay.
money comes through the registry of deeds.
Yeah. So you have to have 3% to get in groups.
Okay.
I would assume that amount is subsidized by towns like Norton that aren't.
Absolutely.
Correct. We
Yes.
subsidize all these towns, all 176 towns, through our fees at the registry of deeds.
And then how does it work for commercial properties? What are they paying into this?
Same.
Yeah.
Same
They're
rate.
paying 1.5, but no exemption.
Exactly.
So that's what we're recommending. You guys
Right.
can decide differently.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question on the eye chart?
Sure.
I guess I'm just trying to follow along so you have the year it's adopted and then the net surcharge raised. Does that mean that those are the funds that have been collected through that 1 to 3% surcharge on the tax bill?
I don't have it in front of me. I pulled that off the state website. This is actual numbers from the state. So this is, if you look FY16, this is actual numbers that were collected, actual match.
Okay. So I'm just trying to understand, that first line, Abington, net surcharge raised is $391,000.
So Abington, they're at 1.5%.
Yep.
And we just started.
Abington, I'm not sure what the zeros are for. I don't know, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, they just joined
Yeah,
in
they started in
2017.
17. Oh, okay.
Right. So
I can barely see this myself.
1.5.
It's really
I guess I'm
tiny.
just trying to understand where those numbers are coming from, because if we adopt this and we're on track for 418,000 per year, I look at a town like Easton that's been doing this since 2002, and their net surcharged raise is just under 1.3 million, which at that rate, we'd be there in a little over 3
Yeah,
years.
2 to 3 years, exactly.
So I'm just having a hard time following it, and I know it's a state document, it's not your document, so,
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know. This comes directly off the state website.
okay.
We can certainly look into it, though.
Is it possible that the net surcharge that's the real estate tax, from the refinancing and?
No, that wouldn't be here.
No, it's not there?
And that's changed, I mean, that's evolved so many years because they ran the fund dry and they had to re-legislate to get more funds into it.
Okay.
I mean, isn't that the
This is
actual
what this
surcharge?
is what the town raised.
Brad, wouldn't that be 1 year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm trying to wonder, where
And
those.
that surcharge rate, I think, since they've been participating, I assume that is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems so, because if you look at the columns to the right of it,
yeah. Yeah, they don't add up to that.
they don't add up to that.
Like Cambridge.
No, they don't, not even with the matching. But again, if that's a surcharge, right, then take a percentage. So if the match was, the first round match was 14.1%, so it's 391 times
Yeah.
.141.
We asked the CPA to give us numbers for Norton. That's
Yep.
what they provided to
Okay.
us.
Yep.
Based on 2019 taxes.
Right.
It would seem that the net surcharge raise would be their potential that they'd raise in a year.
Okay.
Because Abington's not there, obviously, because they started late, but
Yeah.
I would think that would be their potential for a year, the 391.
Okay. That seems to make more sense, Mike.
Okay. So recently, the town held a master plan workshop over at Norton Media, and I picked Serpent's brain about just the areas that residents had expressed particular interest in, and as they think about the vision for the plan. So the raw data included, these were 4 items that fell under the CPA, inclusive community facilities, affordable housing for seniors and young family, nature preservation, and space for biking and walking. So there's a direct correlation in what the residents want and what CPA can provide if we have the funds. So we kind of already went over some of the things that CPA could have paid for or could pay for moving forward. And the funds, even though they have to fall into these particular buckets, they are flexible. So they could be used, we could invest in housing, create a housing plan, develop a housing for seniors. We could rehab some buildings and make them into condos for young families, build a splash pad, restore and preserve historic buildings, documents, protect farmland, boat launches around the reservoir, and protect land in particular. So CPA is a great way that the town can protect its future, because I actually do think protection is really a big part of this. When you don't have the funds to upkeep, things are in danger. So what else can CPA do for Norton? So obviously we could reduce or eliminate future debt exclusions. You can stretch the tax dollars because you're getting matching state funds that you wouldn't have otherwise. And again, you free up some money in the general budget for schools and road repairs and whatever else needs money, which is everything, of course. It is a citizen-controlled approach. So at the end of the day, the voters get to say what happens with the money. And lastly, we did just a proposed article, if we were to bring this to town meeting, what that would look like.
Questions?
Yes, questions?
This is great. Really exciting. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for stepping up and doing
Yeah,
this.
I know the timing's not ideal. We got a lot on our plates, but it's a step in the right direction if we could, get this to pass. The CPA website has a great amount of resources about what other towns have done. We're not the only town in this situation, so there are ways to get it through. And there's things that we could borrow and steal, and not literally steal, but ideas we could steal.
Reallocate.
I'm sorry?
Reallocate.
Okay, reallocate, exactly. So, hope you agree that it's a really great program, and that you would want to support it, so.
It's great.
Seems
Thanks,
great.
Sharon. Thank you all.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's actually not a question. One, I think you guys did a great job too, and I'm glad that we had members of FinCom here to hear this presentation, because I think this is something that, we would support to go to town meeting. I think the one thing that I would ask of you, and maybe Mike as well, is really to look at what we've spent in the past 5 years on projects that could have been funded through this. Because I think that number will be more real to people, to say, look, this, this potentially could have been $250,000 that we used elsewhere, but we had to use it for this, versus, we could have got half of that from the state.
Right.
Because I think that really shows the forward thinking and how we can, we just had a long conversation about our budget and the deficit. So I think this leads into, a real option for us to bring in more money without overburdening residents.
Right, yes, I think that's exactly right.
And then I'd ask too, I know there was a big difference between the 1% and 1.5%, and I think 1.5 is the right target, but certainly, be ready to kind of speak more to that, because I think people will ask. And are you guys planning on doing any info sessions to get this out and get in front of people, or anything on Norton Media?
The task of this committee was to make a recommendation to you.
Yep.
At this point, the way I understood it, and maybe Mike could chime in, our job is done. I mean, this committee is despondent, I think. We made the recommendation, and we took, what was this much information, try to condense it into something you can understand. If you want us to stay on and do other things, I mean, that's.
And this is how much we have.
Yes. I think individually, some of us would be willing to stay on. I mean, ultimately, we didn't know what you were going to say, because,
Well, the task is to socialize it, right? Because you can make the recommendation, you can bring it to us, but we are not going to be able to get
absolutely,
everybody on board, right? Like, it has to be,
Right.
it has to be a community effort.
absolutely. And your endorsement and FinCom's endorsement will go a long way in helping us socialize that through the ways, you know, the different channels that we have, but.
You.
Thanks, Peter.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You guys, thank you very much. This is such a good program. You guys gave it to us in a way that's very easy to understand, and really, you know, from my point of view, I don't know why anybody wouldn't support it. But you guys clearly can speak to this better than we can, because you've done all the work on it. Would you be willing to stay on to help us educate the public and get it to town meeting? If the board were to take a vote tonight, or whenever we have to take the vote, saying that we support this effort, number one. Number two, if that's the case, Mike, do you know off the top of your head how much we pay for the cleanup on the reservoir and the Winnicott?
We appropriated $500,000.
And how much do we pay out of that a year? Is it?
It's been averaging, like, it varies, but it's at least 150.
150,000 a year.
minimum.
So, and this program would bring in about 400,000 if it were to pass, right? So, right there, we can take care of our greatest asset in town, which is those bodies of water, taking it out of the budget, right? And the biggest fear I have with that program is that whenever our budget gets tight, we pull back that type of money, and we've already spent so much cleaning.
Right.
up.
We're very,
backtrack.
and I'll get you the figures, we're very close to that point, because we're just about out of,
Right,
when
and
we
that's
treat
what I
this
said when we
year.
started it, we have to have a plan moving forward. Or this is a plan that could take care of that and still have plenty of money left over to look into other projects, right?
Splash pads, right?
Splash pads. I know the response. So what I was gonna go to with this is, if this board agrees to move forward, I wonder if we couldn't get the Water Bodies Committee to work in conjunction with you guys to do some community education, because that is a big deal, and that would, I could see, be the biggest part of the benefit of this program.
Usually have
What I would say is that you guys should decide if you want to support this moving forward, and give us a task, a set task, we want you to do this.
Yep.
And, you know, then we can, we need some kind of direction of where you guys want to go. If you guys are willing to support this or not, everybody has their own opinion. And give us some direction where we want to go. I'd be willing to stay on that, you know, I don't.
Yes, and I would certainly too.
You know, to digress for a minute, though, it's up to the created board to determine what they should put forth at the town
Correct.
meeting to be voted on in any of these 4 areas. And I don't think it would necessarily be putting out fires every year. You know, there would be new areas to be concerned with besides that which is blowing up.
Well, I think.
We have a lot of blowing up, though, to worry about over the next
Yes.
several years, so.
I think,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, please.
The next example that's relevant to today is we're looking to spend $10 million on, to repair the fields at high schools that have been neglected for forever. If this was in place 10 years ago, you would have steady funding to be able to done that over the last 10 years,
I don't know that that's true.
in the past.
Yeah, I don't know that you can do school stuff for this. It's not one of the buckets.
I believe
I think you
can,
could do,
because
okay, maybe you're right. I don't know,
Stoughton
but,
just did it with their school complex, if you look that up.
okay,
Town of
good.
Stoughton just spent a ton of money, and it's still ongoing up there. It was up there today.
It's not exclusively for school use.
Right.
Yeah, maybe there's some loopholes to
Like if the
use.
town Little League is using them too. and that's-
Correct, and that's what happens here.
Exactly.
Multiple groups use the fields.
Yeah. It's all in how you phrase it.
That's it.
And we we include that weed whacker that died clearing up the way on it?
I would propose that we put this on our agenda for the next meeting to vote on it, and that way there, we can move forward. If that's all right with everyone.
Can we
All
not
in
vote
favor?
on it tonight?
Yeah, I'd be comfortable voting on it tonight.
I would too.
I'm just trying to read quick. I don't think we,
No, it says, please note that it's possible that a voter votes may be taken by the board regarding the above agenda items.
I don't read all that part.
No, I know. It's the last line. I read the first and the last.
No, I don't read the end. That's after we adjourn. Okay, I mean, if everyone's comfortable, I just didn't want to push it, but if everyone's comfortable, we can vote on it tonight. Chair will entertain a motion to support going forward with the Community Preservation Act.
Act, yeah. So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion?
I do have discussion. Just quickly, so we vote on it tonight, considering it passes, then I would suggest, what do you want to do? Because then, fortunately, some of the members have said that they're willing to work. Then we have to have the game plan to get to town meeting. So
Right.
when do we do that? At the next meeting, at our next meeting?
We'll put that on
or-
the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay, so we approve it tonight, and then we come up with a plan at the next meeting.
And I'm just thinking about the motion. Do we want to move forward with a specific percentage now, or do we just want to move forward to pursue the Community Preservation Act?
The motion would be to support the Norton Community Preservation Act as presented. So in the packet.
Putting an article on the warrant
Yes.
at one, yeah, okay.
And then it would go through the normal review process.
Okay. I just didn't want to screw it up and miss something, or...
And
Not
and
that-
Mike, you'll
not that
take care of
I've ever
that?
done that.
Yeah.
And then the warrant article that they propose, you can get that to legal for a cursory review?
Okay? So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say I would be willing to be present at any of the community
Accepted,
engagement things.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay.
Me too.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor
Right.
indicate by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous.
Yay.
Thank you. Well done.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank you.
And thank you in advance for your future help.
Yeah.
You know, something that you people would be an excellent source of too, if in fact this continues on. We need people from, I'm sorry? We need people from Conservation, Historical Housing, Park and Rec, Planning Board, and up to 4 additional people. And you would certainly be a source of suggestion as to who on those boards might be feasible.
What we can do is we can reach out to those
Yeah.
boards and solicit
Thank you.
volunteers.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Nice
Great
job.
job, guys.
Okay. Down to old business. First order of business under old business is to vote on remote participation.
My God.
You voted to develop the policy, but you never voted whether to actually have remote participation or not for this
For this
board.
For this
correct?
board, yeah.
And I think, did you all get, I gave you a list of, you can see who is participating and who isn't that has responded so far.
I'm sorry, Mike,
I was just saying that you developed the remote participation policy, but this board never actually voted whether you want to participate remotely or not. And I was just saying that I did provide you with a list, an up-to-date list of the various boards in town and who has voted and which way they voted.
And Mike, did you get the updated signatures? I think we had some from the planning board that were outstanding.
I believe we do. I can check
Okay.
on that. But just for our clarification on that, if there's a 5-member board and there's 4 members present and they vote in favor, and I mean, what is the point of getting all 5 signatures?
Well, that they understand the policy.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
the
I think
point.
sometimes
It's not
peop-
that they want to.
Just that they
they're-
understand the
yes.
policy, okay.
So they
Yep.
vote on it to approve, but every member has to understand the policy
Okay.
and sign it. And actually, I think in the planning board, when the person who participated remotely the first time was one that did not sign it.
Yep, I think Paul had gotten us the same.
Okay.
I'll check.
Yeah, I think there were a couple like that. And did you get an update one for me for the IDC?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So
Is the chair entertaining a motion?
I'm open for discussion first. Does anybody want to discuss it and indicate what they think, the positives or negatives?
I wouldn't mind discussing it. Just on the policy that's already in place with the committees that have supported it or voted in favor of it, we haven't, one of the stipulations was that we would receive the signatures from those boards
Mhm.
when the vote was taken and the signed papers from the people that participated, which is exactly what you guys were just talking about, but we haven't received that yet.
We have that.
You have that.
I can give you copies
Okay,
of
so
that.
we should have, like, part of.
We got it
putting this-
initially from planning
Yeah.
and
That
from
was
one
it,
other
right.
group, but I don't think,
Not all of them.
no.
So,
I can get, I have those, and the town clerk has a file on it too, so she's keeping them all there too.
And did we talk about posting them somewhere so that everybody could see, or,
It is posted.
no, it's posted electronically?
Yeah.
On the website somewhere?
What's that?
On the website? I know the policy is, but is the,
The list is posted on the selectmen's page.
okay, of those who have adopted the policy?
Yes.
Okay. I thought we talked about that. I don't remember seeing it though, but,
I think we also talked about getting updates on when people are actually using the policy. I think, to my knowledge, the only one that's done it was that planning board meeting that first time. Is that the only time?
I'll have to check. I
you
know,
didn't get an email from me?
Maybe. I get a lot of emails from you. I tend to
I know.
ignore them all.
But it would have been IDC
Okay.
remote. We only had it once.
But I think that regardless if it was an email from you, I think the intent was that we would get a report back to the entire board.
But I thought in the policy it was they would email the selectmen
Okay.
with it.
right, that it was, that
Right. Every time that it was used, we would
get.
we would know.
right. So as of right now, it's only been used twice. Planning board once and IDC
IDC.
once.
Okay.
That we're.
That we're aware of. Did you guys vote on this?
So
Are you on
It's
here?
not on here now.
Did you approve it?
We're missing FinCom.
if everybody's talked out, Chair will entertain a motion for the Board of Selectmen to participate in, remote participation.
So moved.
Second?
So I'm still not done discussing?
Oh.
Sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
So, okay, so that was just a general remote participation. So up to this point, I don't think we've done a really good job of managing it. Okay, so as far as our board is concerned, so my problem with the remote participation with our board is that I feel that our board needs to be more visible, more accessible to the public than some of the other boards. I think that people expect that on a Thursday night, if there's a controversial issue, they can come here and have some FaceTime. So that's my hesitation in voting in favor of remote for the Board of Selectmen. That being said, I also feel that we have a pretty responsible board, and I don't think any members of this board would misuse or overuse this policy. So I would be in favor of voting for the remote participation for the Board of Selectmen if our board agreed to hold themselves to a bit of a higher standard and use it only when absolutely necessary moving forward. And that's not part of the policy or anything, that's, would just have to be an understanding on this board, because I think we have to recognize that we have a bigger responsibility to the voters than some of the other boards do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that up until, I get that I think we do have a responsible board. I'm fervently against this for this particular board. I think it's great for other boards, but I think our presence when people come before for, various things. I think it's going to get very clunky with telecommunication, and I think that we need to be visible. I get that sometimes we have conflicts, can't make meetings, illness, whatever it may be, but I just don't feel that this is appropriate for Board of Selectmen.
Anyone else?
Mike, I certainly appreciate your position, and I, of course, hold the opposite position. From my perspective, that I'm with Mary, I don't think that any one of us will abuse it, but should something come up where we have to travel for work, which I think would be the biggest reason why we'd use it, I think that we have a responsibility for all board members who can be present to discuss and to vote to the townspeople, and I think this allows us to do that.
But you're not present. So
You are-
I
you are
just think
present.
there are presentations, there are materials that we have to look at.
And there's a policy, if you have any materials, they have to be distributed to the people working participating remotely prior to the meeting. And we had that same thing, and I'll just use the instance for the IDC, we had somebody who participated remotely, had all the materials out to the group beforehand, we had a guest speaking, had no issues in the discussion, and, that conversation afterwards was, it was great to be able to participate remotely, to hear the perspective of somebody else coming in to answer questions. So that's why I think, while I agree we should always be in person when we can, I also feel that we should have as many board members present when there are discussions or votes put before us.
Okay.
I think a vote to adopt does not create an obligation to utilize it. I think it just gives us the flexibility to use it if and when the right time occurs.
Now, I've given her all a chance, and I'll just tell you that my age is showing again, because I don't like the telephone. If I'm talking to somebody, I want to see them face to face, look them in the eye. And I am not in favor of remote participation for that reason, if it's the only reason. I hesitate to answer telephones at home, because I'd rather drive someplace and look to somebody in their eye and talk to them. It's just something about person to person. It's the way I feel, and especially in a setting such as this. And I think if it was an important subject, the board members could adopt like a policy to delay a vote or delay something to make it so that the fifth member or the missing member could be here if they were, if they felt compelled or they felt like it was important for them to participate. I don't feel comfortable handling the kind of business we do over telephone.
Do you feel that that's fair, though, to delay, especially when, and I'll use this as the perfect example, right? Like this was brought up many meetings, and we delayed, and there were boards who were looking to use this, right? Like, do you think that's fair to everybody else, that because we can't have everybody in person to participate, that we push something off? It's just a question.
Possibly isn't. It's just that my gut
Yeah,
feeling.
I prefer to be in person too. I agree, but.
I dislike the kind of the anonymity of being not seen behind a telephone. And it's not with anyone specifically here. It's more, it's people like, even people in my family. I'd rather drive to talk to somebody than talk on a telephone. I can tell more from looking in people's eyes than listening to the words that are coming out of their mouth. So I don't like the whole idea of it. And maybe it's my age.
That's your opinion.
It's my age. It's back when we used to have party lines. And I didn't know who was listening in on my private phone call when I was 3 years old. So, we have a motion and a second. When we're going to vote on it, why don't we do a roll call vote on this then?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
Jack?
No.
I vote no. So it'd be 3-2 in favor. Okay. Next is marijuana host community agreement and limitations language.
Okay. So I can start off on this. Mike had sent this, he received the final language that we had been asking about for the last couple meetings from town council on the addition of the language extending beyond just a marijuana retail establishment. So I don't know who has had a chance to go through this, but I hope that you all have, so we can get to a point. It's twofold, not only that we're comfortable with the language, I can tell you the IDC is in the process of reviewing this as well, and we do have some comments on it, but it would be nice for us to provide any input and then go back to town council with a collective response. And I think, Mike, did you send this latest copy to the chief, to the police chief as well?
I did not.
Okay. Is there anything, I didn't see anything material that he would want to see it, but,
I'll forward it to him.
okay, just in case. I didn't see any changes that she had listed there. So I guess, are there questions? Are there questions on this? And this is twofold. One is the host community agreement, and then she also provided us language in respect to the limitation of licenses, which we can talk about separately or as part of this as well. And does everybody understand how the HCA works?
Not completely.
So in order for an applicant to secure a license with the state, they have to enter into agreement with a town. And they take the host community agreement with them as part of their application. And that tells the Cannabis Control Commission that there is an agreement with the town that they're supporting of this, and that, you know, they expect to do business. So it is part of their application. One of the things that they have to do before they submit this is essentially have a site identified, and I think they have to just secure site control for that. I don't know if that might have to be a question for town council specifically, but it's
Like a
for.
signed tentative lease or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. So they have to identify a location, they have to enter in the host community agreement. It's essentially, a negotiation, like not every agreement would be the same. I know we talked previously about, certain things that we would leave out of an HCA template that we may address separately based on, applicants or what we saw coming in front of us. But it is kind of, it's one of the first steps that they have to go through, that the applicant has to go through. And certainly for us, it's an opportunity for us to make sure that we're putting in some of the controls that we want, that we address things like the community impact fee, which is typically in addition to the 3% excise tax, it's a 3% fee that we would get based on, I think it's gross revenue that would go right back into any sort of impacts that would occur with the town, from a perspective of if we wanted to do like substance abuse education, if there were, I think some of the things in there were like road repairs, things like that, traffic, not like, traffic studies, but if we needed to do any sort of traffic improvements.
control.
Yeah, things like that. So I think that's probably one of the biggest items that's in the HCA, to really, help navigate us through the process of bringing this type of industry into the town. And this would be not only for marijuana retail establishments, but for all type of establishments that would come before us.
Okay. Now, the town receives money almost like through a sales tax almost.
Well, we do. So we voted almost 2 years ago for a 3% excise tax
Yep.
on all retail sales.
And how is it collected and how is it audited? I mean, how do they,
The excise tax?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's above my pay grade. That's in the bylaw and that goes through.
It probably is done just like the mails tax. We don't do anything. I mean, the mails tax gets collected, the restaurants pay it directly to the state, and the state just wires us every quarter.
No, it was just that, I was confused only because I know when they first came out with having the marijuana legal in Massachusetts, where it's not federally legal, it had a problem going through banking regulations. And I didn't know how they audited it, what kind of oversight there is to.
So the industry is primarily cash.
Right,
You
and
know,
that's
cash
what I'm-
debit because of that.
Right, and that's why I'm wondering, how do they, do they have a board
They
set up
have to,
audit?
from seed to wherever it ends up,
Yeah.
they have to track it all the way. And the state, they have a system with the state where they're monitored so the state knows.
So the state has like auditors and.
The Cannabis Control Commission, I mean, the regulations are pretty specific.
Yeah.
Well, things can be specific, but I want to know who's going to be standing there.
Right, well, it talks about that, you know, when a plant or a bud or a leaf or whatever the name of it is, that they have to weigh it before it's transported. It has to be weighed when it's received. Like, there's a lot of control
Okay.
in the industry.
But it's handled by the board.
Yeah, that part is, what I don't know is the community impact fee, because that's specific to us. I mean, that's a fee that we impose specifically on the company. And I don't know if it says in here. Let me check.
So,
It does say that they
Yeah.
have to pay it within,
I mean, they'll have to give a report to the state each year on what they've sold. And we'll have to get a copy of that report. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So it says that town may require the company to have its financial records examined, copied, and audited by an independent financial auditor, the expense of which shall be borne by the company, provided that such expense shall be offset against the annual payment of 3% of gross sales. Just talks about when that has to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very difficult to oversee a cash business. And I was just wondering if they had any insight how they were going to handle that. I mean, how do you know if somebody took in $300 or $3,000?
I think the state is getting a hefty tax on all the product.
Oh, I'm
so
sure they
have a vested
are.
interest in going through and auditing all the sales.
Right, but that's all I'm looking for is, do they have, like, auditors? That's what I'm looking for.
The state will always make sure they get their money, so.
Well, I'm sure they will.
And we'll
I want-
piggyback off of that.
Exactly. Ride their coattails all the way.
Okay. That's all I want to know, is how do we track our money? And I guess if we see 20,000 cars going in there a day, and they tell us they sold $300 worth of stuff, we can kind of figure out that they're not telling us the truth.
it would be nice to clarify the 3% through the state, if that is refunded, like Mike said, through
The
the.
excise?
Yep, through the similar program to the hotel meals tax. And then.
That's in our tax, is it our, I'm going to ask other people who may know. Do you remember, was that in the tax bylaw when we found it? The 3% excise tax? It was like 64 or something, right, the bylaw?
It's not a bylaw. Are you looking for the specific number?
No, do you just remember what it was called, the chapter? Was it taxes? I think it was just stacked with all the other ones. But yeah, we can follow up on that.
So this is included in the meals tax?
No.
No, it's similar.
Oh, it's not.
It's similar.
That's what I thought. Okay, so yes, I would just want confirmation that the refund back to the town is set up the same way as that.
Okay.
And then also, I guess we would need to clarify how the additional 3% would be collected.
So that's on the, under the first page where it talks about, there's two separate paragraphs. One that talks about cultivation and manufacturing under community impact fee. Oh, wait, it's page 2.
Okay.
So it talks about when when the fee should be made. And again, remember, these are terms that we could negotiate with companies as well. So it just goes through, I think the question is, to your point, right, how does that money come to us, like check format or what? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, just, I mean, do they, on their own, tell us what they owe us, or do we,
Well,
what
so
is the-
they have to provide financials to the state.
Yep.
On their gross
So we would get a
sales.
copy of that?
Yep.
Okay.
And then that's how it would be computed. I mean, and really, like, for all intents and purposes, if it were 3%, if we kept it 3%, at least in the retail portion of it, right, we could compare that back to the excise tax that we're receiving.
No, yeah. And does this would apply to retail or dispensary?
Yeah, so, well, retail is dispensary, but retail
Oh,
or like
so-
cultivation or
Yeah, that's what I'm
manufacturing or
thinking, cultivation.
distribution.
Yeah.
So, and that's what she did here. She added in the language for cultivation or manufacturing facility.
So I was just looking at that. It doesn't say anything about the actual sales at like a dispensary type. It just says cultivated or manufactured at the facility. So if they are bringing in from elsewhere, it seems like that would not be covered.
I think that's on the, wait, say that again.
The other.
You're just talking about the retail
So section A, 2A1.
Yep.
Company shall pay an annual community impact fee in an amount equal to 3% of the gross sale price of all marijuana and marijuana-infused products cultivated or manufactured at the facility. So it says nothing about,
This was like the second version where she added the language for cultivation. So what we should probably do, Mike, in the template is have both paragraphs.
Yeah,
So that it's clear to us.
or just add,
We just have to add the other one back.
cultivated or-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that we have to consider too, and not for tonight, because this will be a multi-meeting process, but there, like, Section B talks about annual community benefit payments. There's also Section C, it talks about additional cost payments and reimbursements. So, and if you go to page 4, they talk about, Section D is annual charitable nonprofit contributions. So these are, she put a comment in here about, while some applicants are willing to pay the benefit amounts, others will resist, and note that the statute doesn't authorize those payments. So that, it's something that we need to consider on, do we keep it in from a template perspective, but use it as, a point of negotiation with each agreement that we discuss? Or is there something, like I've seen, from what I've looked at, and I will come back with more information as we dive into this more from the IDC perspective, but I've seen more on like the annual charitable profit contributions, typically like in the $2,500 range, and they'll specify like what nonprofits those are. I don't know if, I don't remember off the top of my head if item B, the community benefit payments, I don't know that we've had many of those pop up, but we're just in the process now of looking across different HCA's. So we'll have some more information on that.
I think it makes sense to keep them in and then use that as a piece of negotiation. It's easier to take them out
Right,
rather than add
right.
it back in later.
And I like it because this template kind of identifies all of the issues that we had talked about up front, from safety in the town, the use of our resources, et cetera. So I agree, leave it in, and if we have to negotiate it out for a particular reason, we could always do that, but
Yep.
I think the template protects the town.
Is there anything that you would expect to see in here that you don't?
From my point of view, I thought it was pretty inclusive. My only concerns were how we were going to get the money at the end of the day, so, and we already discussed that, so.
I think it's a great piece of work.
It's town council.
Good job, town council.
Yeah. This has been around since 2016, I think. Okay, so that's it, just the part about the financials. There's a section in here, if you take a look at page 10, just for later consideration, where council advised not including specific language in the text. We talked about this, it's under successors and assigns. We talked about this at the IDC, and we agreed with council's recommendation to remove it from the HCA. There was something that came up recently. We're still having discussions on this, so please don't take that as a final decision, but, you know, just bringing it to your attention because it was something that she said take out.
Not knowing much about it, after reading the paragraph and reading her comments, we've done more work on it, but it seemed to make sense to me.
Yeah.
So just in addition to the financial payments, just that adding in on section 2A1 about making sure that any products sold.
That retail's there.
Yeah, retail. Beyond that, looks great. Don't want to have another miss in the contract where we don't get to use the sewer system that we're hosting in town, right?
Anything else on it, Mike or Brad? No?
If I see anything, I'll shoot you an email.
Sure, sure.
I don't read that quickly. Let's
Like
put
I
it this
said-
way, I don't read and comprehend that quickly.
Like I said, the IDC's meeting next week, so we'll be discussing this as well. So we'll certainly come back with recommendations too, for consideration.
I'll bring back info from the MMA.
You're going, right?
Bring you some info.
Yeah.
Samples. If I get samples, I'm not bringing them back.
Okay. We all set with that then? And we'll wait for an update after you fine tune it some more?
Oh, can we talk just quickly about the limitation language?
No way. I'm kidding.
That was good, Brad. So this is something that the IDC is discussing as well in respect to how many licenses and how do we want to focus. So we're required by the state to have at least 20% of the amount of liquor, package store liquor licenses. Did I say that right?
Correct.
And,
Didn't they say package stores outside of New England?
no. They were called drive. So she gave language on that. The IDC is still having discussions on this. But it seems, and we're going to get clarification, it seems like if we want to limit it specifically to that number, that we would have another article on the town meeting. So potentially we would have multiple articles for this one. We'd have one focused on the zoning changes in bylaw, and then one focused on the licenses.
Is that only if you want to do something other than the 20%?
Well, that's what's not clear, is because she gave us language for the 20%, but that's what the state requires. So
When
you
I read it,
have
I
to do
kind of
it?
felt that if it was 20%, but if you wanted to put a number instead of 20%, then Part B would.
Right.
I don't
That's
know,
just
she
the way
gave
I
us
read it.
both.
I think she gave it to us as examples.
And if you wanted to go below the 20%, you'd have to have a vote, ballot question.
Right, first is just an article, the warrant. I mean, she gave us both options. Option one to limit it based off a percentage, and option one to limit it based off of a number.
And I think if you limit it based off a number, we have a bigger obligation. Whereas if you just go with the state law, it's a percentage, right? I think you can do the 20%, but if you want to say, we want to do 10 licenses instead of 20%, then it has to meet certain criteria. But I'm not sure, it's just
I
the
don't
way
know,
I read
because
it.
I read this as, if we limit it to 2, that number has to be greater than 20%.
Right.
Right, by state law.
That's how I read it too.
Yeah. Which I think it is, I think the way that our math,
So if you want 3, it's a town meeting vote, not a ballot. It's
Right.
just if you go below 2.
So I would say, because this will be a controversial issue, I would say go with what the state law allows or recommends with that 20%, and just keep it simple. And then, because we can always change that at a later date if we find that we need more.
We can hold,
If the
call a
20
special or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know.
and the other thing too is this is specific to retailers, not other establishments. So we may say we only want 2 retailers in the town, but we could have cultivation, we could have manufacturing like in other industrial areas. So there is a differentiator there, and retail is really the one that, you know, folks are most concerned about, especially when you think about impact and traffic, which as time goes on, as these things are popping up all over the place, like it really seems to be a non-event. So, but it's still something that, you know, we want to make sure that people are comfortable with moving forward.
I agree with Mary.
Copy.
She's right.
Mark that down.
Quote it. Okay. Any
Okay?
other questions?
Not right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? Going. Okay, we're going to move on to the town manager's report. These units.
On February 19th, Semrec is going to have the regional dispatch, a meeting in Mansfield again, like we've had in the past, where the selectmen of all 4 towns are invited to attend to get an update on the status of the project. And that'll be at 6 o'clock in the Mansfield Town Hall on February 19th. So let me know who's available, and so I can let them know.
Is that February vacation week, do you know?
I think it is, yeah.
I won't be here.
Wait, what is it? February 19th?
February 19th.
You won't be here.
I won't be here,
How does he know you're not going to be here?
because he sent
We're
me an
talking about the
email about-
photos.
Remember the other meetings?
Oh, right.
Brad's vacationing with me, that's how he knows.
You too.
I'll be around. I'll go. And is that the regionalization of the call center?
Communication center, yeah.
Communication center.
They're doing it at the town hall again? Is that where they're?
At Mansfield Town Hall, yeah.
Okay. Selectmen's report and mail.
Almost it, Mr. Chairman.
Two things. One, someone approached me today to see if the town could look into a composting program. I know like Easton and Mansfield have rolled one out. There's a company, I can't remember the name, I didn't write it down. But if enough people sign up, it becomes a service that they provide at no cost to the town. I don't know how we can get word out and.
We do have a drop-off area
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
on
Hill Street?
West Hodges, right?
All right. Compost West Hodges. Pass that on.
I'll get the address for you, Jack.
Okay.
I knew we had one. I thought it was still active, but
Great. The other item is Dave Lennon had reached out some weeks ago about wanting to renew the lease for the property on Mansfield Ave. He'd asked if I could follow up and see.
It was sent to him a week or 2 ago.
Okay, so he probably.
So he should have it.
Okay. And that's it for me.
Mary?
All set.
Renee? Do you have anything?
I do, I have many items.
Okay.
Mike, do you have something that you want to go first?
I did forget to, Mike, anything on the flagpole in the new cemetery?
I haven't heard from Keith after that, but the light, is that?
Either a light or we gotta raise and lower it at,
Yeah.
according to
Solar light
protocols.
is the better
Yeah,
option.
okay, thank you.
I remember one more thing.
Yep.
The,
No.
Sorry, Renee, we're just gonna keep stalling until you forget stuff.
And then I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
The upkeep of the water dispenser, so I think Mike, you'd indicated it was the responsibility of the water sewer board
Yeah.
or the department to take care of that. I was out there earlier tonight, it looks great now, so whoever was out scraped it down good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot warmer, too.
That's true.
When it gets really cold, I asked them to put a sign up too, caution ice, because in the middle of the winter, no matter what you do, there's gonna be ice there.
Yep.
I mean, because with a storm ends, you go out, you salt, it melts, it goes away, you're good to the next storm. But here, you have people coming, they're filling bottles, rinsing them, dumping it out on the parking lot. And so you're gonna constantly have water, and, we do have a bucket there with salt that people can throw down, but when it gets really cold, there's gonna be ice there. But, so they cleaned it up, they put a mat out there, so hopefully that'll be better, because it'll be up a little and the water will go through. And but still, anywhere along there,
Yeah.
there's possibility of ice at any time in the winter, so.
So where is the line of responsibility for water, sewer versus highway? Because just seemed odd to me that they would be responsible for that small section, when I'm assuming highway is responsible for the parking lot side water.
Just, it's water and sewers machine, so
Well, I could see
they're
them being
responsible for all the upkeep on that.
Yeah, I can seem responsible for the machine, but why are they responsible for the execution of snow and ice removal, if that's the highway department?
Because they should be going by that machine, checking on it, making sure it's working right, and
Right, I would say the same for,
they have as much ability to do that as highway department does. I mean, they're out there on the road swinging just like highway can, and do your job. I mean, it's their
shoveling and
machine.
icing and de-icing?
Well,
That's
it's
part of their
probably not-
normal responsibilities?
It's probably not a bad idea to have them do it, because at least they would have their eyes on the machine. Because there seems to be an awful lot of issues that show up on social media about it. So it is their machine, the ice is being caused by the use of the machine. But if they were to go by every day with a pail of salt or something, at least they're at the machine, they're seeing, I mean, how many times on Facebook would say it's jammed, it's broken? I kind of feel they should have some ownership in it.
So I get that, but if there's a snowstorm or
Oh,
an
well,
ice
that- I
storm,
think that would be
these guys
different.
are right here, right?
Well,
Like-
yeah, it gets
But
cleared
that would
out
be
for
covered.
that.
No, I think we just want the water department to take care of any ice caused by spilt water.
Right, but I think the pictures that were on social media had a bunch of snow and then ice, like it wasn't maintained. Like I would think as part of maintaining town hall, that they're gonna be down there shoveling to get to the food pantry, to get to the ice station, to get to the egress door. Right, I'm with you on, the use of the machine is going to cause ice, but I mean,
And I agree with you, if there's a
again, where
storm.
like there's proximity, like can't we all just like share the responsibility and get it done so somebody doesn't get hurt? I just don't understand why it's so difficult. Do we need to write a policy? Board writes policy, right?
I think there's a difference if there's a storm and highways here cleaning the
Right.
parking lot
Right.
anyways. If there's not a storm on a day-to-day, a cold day and it's freezing, I feel that water sewer should have that responsibility.
I'm with you on that.
Because in fairness to highway, really, that department does so, I
They do
mean,
everything.
You heard the,
And I understand, but their primary responsibility for a snowstorm is snow and ice removal.
Right, and
So
I
I would think as
take
part
that
of
out of
that,
it.
right.
yeah.
But I think that was what kind of spawned, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I'm 50% on social media, if that, that was the initial picture was the snow.
Yeah, there was a lot of snow, a lot of ice that had just been built up over time.
Right.
So it looked more than just people dumping water out.
So can you ask them and set that expectation that, for a snowstorm, like when they're maintaining town hall, that's part of it? And then similarly with
But
Frank.
that's not gonna be their first objective. I mean,
No, and it shouldn't be their first
But,
objective.
but they
you know?
will, they will.
I mean, their first
clear out.
objective should be the roadways and making
Yeah,
sure the emergency
absolutely.
personnel can get through.
But
But,
as a secondary, tertiary objective,
Yeah.
go through, make sure that that's
Right.
cleared out, and then that allows water sewer to do the, call it routine maintenance of de-icing and
Yeah.
maintaining that. I mean, my biggest concern is that somebody slips and falls out there and gets really badly hurt. There was somebody shared that they had come up as someone had fallen. There was no name or anything that was provided, but the person seemed pretty shaken up by that, so. Just seems like a liability out there.
or it's just disrespectful. I mean, somebody gets hurt because we have this
Yeah.
interdepartmental fighter. Whoever parks closest, go grab some salt, put it on there in the morning.
So we've had the discussion among ourselves, and Mike, you're going to handle it with the highway, but there has to be some communication to the water department that on a day-to-day basis,
Well,
we
Frank
expect them
reports
to.
to Mike too, so.
Yeah.
Can you,
Yeah, we did talk about that earlier this week, and that,
oh, you already talked about it, okay, perfect. Thanks.
And they can also monitor it through their camera feed, that they like to watch people get water and drive to Attleboro.
We'll be doing it in about an hour, I suspect, based on the remaining agenda.
They almost be worth getting a machine that, have a
Bad one.
card to swipe
Yeah.
and just issue them to Norton residents. who want them.
And I don't know. Today, someone had a pickup truck, and I can't tell you how many jugs they must have filled. They filled the whole pickup truck. And I'm like, why can't you come and get 4 gallons at a time?
I can answer that question, because I don't have time to come and get 4 gallons at a time. So I'm gonna fill up when we leave here. I have 15 gallons in the car. And that's what we use in about a week and a half.
Yeah, because they did put in a larger filter, so hopefully that'll work. But when people come in with 5-gallon jugs and they do 5 or 6 of those at a time, they're just wiping that machine out.
So is the new filter in and operational?
It's in. I'll have to check and see if they've had it tested and it's
So I know it
good to
needs to
go.
go through DEP to get all certified.
Yeah, I thought they were. There was gonna be a notification when it went offline.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything.
Well, I'll tell you if it's working later on tonight.
That's
You
great.
can
I'm parked
escalate.
right next to you, so.
Oh, good, you can help.
I think there's somewhere to be.
It is. Oh,
You know, so,
I don't know, am I ready?
I'm now done for the second.
That wasn't you?
No, that was not me. That was actually one of my things, because I was on that same email. And I'm so, like, done with getting those emails. It's frustrating, and I can understand why. Okay, so a couple things. I think we talked about this before, so I continue to have requests about how do I email the selectmen? Can we have town email addresses available? Can we please get that on the Board of Selectmen page to just put a column with our town email addresses? So if people want to contact us, they have a way of doing it, and I'm not getting message through Facebook. We set that up similarly for the IDC, so I think Charlene could probably do an easy copy paste on that. I had a question about your email on the purpose behind the police cell phone policy. Can you talk to that, or?
Why I sent the email?
Yeah, I didn't know if there was, like, if you observed something, or if somebody had reached
Oh,
out to
no,
you
somebody
separately.
had, no, I had a couple complaints about officers directing traffic and talking on the phone at the same time. So that's where that email came from.
Okay. And Mike, I know I mentioned in a reply to that about, I think just separately to you, about the one paragraph that seems to be out of compliance with state law.
I'm sure they're a certified police force, so
No,
I'm sure
no,
they'll.
it was like, the second paragraph says something like, in accordance to
I-
Massachusetts state law,
I'm
like,
su-
cell phone is permitted, but they're,
Changed this year.
right, well, even texting changed last year. So just to,
I'm sure they'll update it,
Okay.
whatever, yep.
just if you could bring it to their attention so they know. We talked a couple meetings ago about the town hall repairs and options based on the email that you sent with the pictures. You're gonna come back with, some options.
Well, there's nowhere to move in here. I mean, we looked around, there's limited electrical outlets, there's just nothing that can be done in this building as far as relocating people.
Okay, so we have to do repairs?
What's that?
So we have to do repairs?
We just moved, I mean, in the offices where part of the ceiling was falling, we just moved the desk to a different part of the office. So we did repairs up on the roof. Hopefully, that'll work. Took the antenna off the roof, the old horn that was up there. Took that off because they felt it might have been leaking underneath where that was connected to the roof, so they pulled that off and did patches up there, so hopefully that'll hold for a while. And while we're talking about the building, people were smelling gas today, so the company that handles the heating system said to shut it off, so hopefully it doesn't get too cold tonight, because there's no heat in the building right now. So hopefully we'll be good to go tomorrow morning. It won't be that cold in here. So until they get back out here to check and see why the gas smell is there, they said to shut it down, so.
So we've been in here with no heat?
Yeah.
Why is this
What-
room like an oven?
I know, well, they just shut it off when the meeting started.
That was why
When I
we
got called
delayed a couple
down.
minutes.
These lights, we gotta just move these lights around.
So if I can, do we have any carbon monoxide detectors in the building?
I don't, I know the fire department came over to check it, so.
Only reason I ask is I have a colleague that runs a building that had issues with the heating system, and it was continually dumping CO into
Yep.
there, and they had to evacuate
That's what they
3 or
felt.
4
that-
days in a row.
Right, that's what they felt it could have been, so that's why we had the fire department come over with the detectors just in case.
He went to Home Depot and grabbed a couple of wall units and put them up,
Throw 'em in.
and that saved the next 2 or 3
Okay.
times before someone fell ill and got
Yep.
sick.
Isn't that like a law?
For residences, I don't know what it is for businesses or commercial.
It probably is for buildings with new occupancy permits.
For new construction.
Right. Yeah, so maybe just grab a couple for safety purposes. It's a bit scary.
Doesn't the fire department have them as well? I think
They hand them out?
they hand them out sometimes. I don't know.
I don't know if that's the chief.
They came over with a sniffer, though, so.
Yep. I'm just saying, like, moving forward.
Yeah, no, I know,
knowing the
I know
condition
it
of the
is.
building,
I don't think
provides
that,
another
but I
piece
don't
of-
think that was the problem personally.
What, the smell?
It smelled like the natural gas.
Yeah, right.
And it sound, like I was telling the firefighter, I was sitting here doing paperwork, and it seemed like the smell came right as one of the units kicked on. So it's, I don't know if it's got a buildup of, fuel in there, and then when it kind of over burnt. It was like choking a car or something.
Right.
So I'm not, because it dissipated like within a minute or so.
Mhm.
It's either that or I passed out, I don't know.
Right. If we had a CO detector, we might know. So Mike, do you feel all the problems that you had reported, do you feel that they've been mitigated at this point?
As much.
Maybe short term?
Yeah.
Okay.
As much as we can.
Okay, and you'll just keep us posted if anything
Yep.
recurs. In respect to the town, so is there a list that you maintain for town property that we have where there may be restrictions on use or like somebody donated it to us?
Well, usually it would be anything that's under conservation restriction. Jen would
Okay.
have that list.
And that would be it? Like something that was, like this, well, tonight it was donated conservation. The one that was donated for,
Fernandez Park.
I don't know, who was the recent one? And the intent of it was for a boat ramp.
Oh, was it?
Pino? Pino? Is that the name?
Pino's Cove.
Yes.
Is that for a boat ramp?
I d-
I mean, there's no restrictions on it.
I don't think a big boat ramp. I think it was like canoe, kayak.
Yeah.
Reading the article.
Yeah.
Like, is that available out online? Like, would we be able to see that has, like, it's a piece of property that we own, but it's, like, would it be labeled as conservation?
I don't believe that. I think that was donated to the town. I don't think that was given to conservation. I'd have to look.
Okay.
And we have a piece of land up on East Main behind the Dunkin' Donuts, but that was park
Right.
recreation land.
Yeah, it's like a
Passive
rectangle.
recreation,
right?
yeah.
But we have no money. to
So
do
we do have
anything
some
with
like that.
Okay. But there's nowhere, like, we have collectively where we can see that, right?
No,
we
usually
put-
just if we're looking at a piece of property, if someone has interest in doing something on it, then we'd pull out the deed and check any of the restrictions.
Okay. And then additionally, and I meant to ask this, I apologize, when the auditor was here, you had mentioned in the September 19th meeting that you guys were putting together a financial management plan
Mhm.
for the selectmen to review?
We're still working on it.
Okay, what's the ETA on that?
We should probably have that done by the end of February.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the water department coming next meeting?
Next, first meeting in February.
Okay. And then, I think I just have two more quick things. One, I wanted to do, just provide a quick IDC update on the just in relation to the town meeting. So I mentioned, we're looking at the HCA. In respect to the zoning overlay, we completed that and voted on it, and it's now, we have sent it off externally to have it mapped out for us. We are still working on the bylaw changes, so those will, as soon as that's in a somewhat final form, those will go back to the planning board for review. I can't remember when we talked last, the planning board, when we met with them, had recommended that the article be supported through the IDC, not through the planning board, as an economic development article, not so much a zoning change, so that'll come in front of the board from the IDC. And I think that is it, just in respect to updates. Mike and Paul have certainly been helpful in respect to gathering information and setting up meetings for us to kind of figure out, get some guidance and figure out next steps and what we need to do on that. So Mike, thank you, and please thank Paul too. And then I had one more thing. I just wanted to pass this out as a follow-up from the joint meeting. Oh, I don't know why I gave you that one. Here, take those. As a follow-up from the joint meeting, in respect to the annual town meeting coming up and making sure that the boards work together to look at the articles and hear information. It's small, I apologize, and we'll have more information on it, but Amy Sawyer and I got together and we looked at the calendars and looked at some of the various departments and budgets that would need to be reviewed. Not having, of course, the article list, there's probably more that'll go on there, but what we did is we mapped out, in that initial timeline, we had certain segments that talked about joint meetings or budget workshops, and so what we did is we kind of mapped out against scheduled meetings that the selectmen had and scheduled meetings that FinCom had, where we could leverage joint meetings so that we're not taxing either petitioners to come to multiple meetings or any of, Mike or Dr. Byetta or any other department heads in presenting items to us. So I'll provide that to you just as a reference right now, and then there'll be more information as she socializes it through FinCom, and we put some specific information down in respect to some objectives of some of the joint meetings.
Great.
Okay.
Would it be possible to get a look at what articles have been submitted at our meeting on the 6th?
Yeah, I don't even
Just
know if,
high level.
yeah, I don't even know if we have any yet, but I'll get the, everyone will wait till the last minute.
Yep.
I think that's all I had.
One thing came to mind while we were talking is, I have a concern about the second February meeting. I don't think, we're not going to have a quorum present, because, according to my calendar, it looks like it'd be the 19th.
I'm back in town for Thursday, so I will be here.
Oh, that'd be the 20th. I don't know if, as long as everybody is going to be around.
I'm here.
'Cause I won't be here. I don't know about you.
I don't know. I may be in New Hampshire still, so I'll have to check that with
Okay, well.
Board of Selectmen at home.
Do you want to participate remotely?
Nope.
That's a good
Well,
point,
we
Renee.
can get back to it. Just that I didn't want to let it go by without bringing up that possibility.
So there would be three of us?
There'd be-
You're not here.
I'm not here,
Mike may not be here.
right.
I may not be here, yeah.
So clerk runs the meeting?
You don't have a clue.
Okay.
Plan for an extra hour.
Don't let it go to your head.
I'll do my best.
Okay, is everybody else? It's all set. Warrants and minutes.
Actually,
Yes.
Mike, have we gotten the OSHA report back yet? Still? Okay. Sorry, Mike.
That's all right. Under warrants and minutes, I'll report that I approved a payroll warrant, PR 20-15 for the week ended January 11th, 2020. Warrant dated January 16th, 2020, amount of $1,533,994.72. I approved invoice warrant AP 20-29 dated January 16th, 2020, in the amount of $1,565,133.81. And I approved invoice warrant AP 20-30 dated January 23rd, 2020, in the amount of $258,378.94. We have minutes to be approved. I believe that if we can approve these, I'd like to do it separately. September 5th, 2019, I'd like to do separate, only because I was here. The other two I was not.
I thought we had approved the 5th. Did you get my email on that? Did you get emails from me today? Something going on with the town email. So I believe we approved September 5th the last meeting, and it was September 19th that we had to do, because I had provided, and my comments were in there. I mean, we can certainly reapprove
Okay.
these, but that,
We'll just, it's not like we have to approve it. We'll just hold it off and.
well, I mean, let's do
Well, you know,
the,
we can approve the 5th a second time.
yeah, that's what I'm
So-
saying. Let's just approve it a
Yeah.
second time then, but I think we still have outstanding the 19th.
Okay.
And then I sent back comments on the 5th today. But it seems like, Jen, you didn't get any emails from me today? So it looks like we have an email problem again.
Okay. So Chair will entertain a motion to approve the September 5th, 2019 minutes as written.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And is everyone prepared to vote on the November 5th, 2019, and November 21st, 2019 meeting minutes?
I am not. I submitted changes for the 5th,
Okay, we'll hold off on
but it
those two.
seems like those haven't gotten through.
We'll hold off on those two then.
Are they major, or they're just something that we could?
I'd have to pull up my computer and look at it.
Okay.
Okay, we'll hold off on those two. Nothing on the next meeting agenda yet. Forward it to Mike, if you come up with something. And due to the time, Mr. Units has indicated that the need for the executive session really is not pressing, and we will not go into executive session tonight.
We are not going?
No, it's not pressing, it was informational, and that was basically it. So unless anyone has anything else, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.